Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Decor Depot Southern 500 for the Elite Racing Network. My name is David Westergreen. Joining me, as always, will be David Huckleberry and Zach Evans, and we will be running the Southern 500 at the track too tough to tame, Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. A quick thought from you, Zach, before we send it off to the national anthem here. What are we expecting to see tonight?
I mean, what you always expect at Darlington, right? Lots of Darlington stripes, lots of close racing, a long race, lots of beautiful throwbacks here tonight. And whoever wins this one, they're going to have to earn it.
Absolutely right. So now we'll send it down to the national anthem. We are back at Darlington Raceway here for the Belly Up Sports Series, and let's go over the starting lineup. The pole run is over for Ethan Burrell. He will finally not start a race on the pole this season. He will roll from second. Jonathan Cutlip picks up the pole. We'll see if that 5 car can stay connected for the entire race tonight. It's been a bit of a trying start for our pole sitter, Jonathan Cutlip. Starting third will be Ethan Stanley. Starting in fourth will be Gavin Hibbs. Tate Lytle will start fifth, and Scott Crump will roll off sixth. Justin Wadsworth goes from seventh, and Matthew Weeks will roll from eighth. Leighton Norgard will start ninth. Trey Holmes will start in 10th. Another guy dealing with those connection issues. We'll see if he's able to keep connected the whole race. Ryan Gavel starts 11th, and David Tooker will roll from 12th.
Starting in the 13th position, Justin Fortner in car 26. Alongside him, Chad Frankenfield in car 15. Behind that, we have Jeff Green, car number 2. Jordan Owens in the number 16 machine. Row 9, Hunter Smith, car 54. Tyler Fody rolling off 18th. For tonight's Decor Depot Southern 500. That's going to be a struggle all night, David. Andrew Rucker starting 19th. Zach Rogers will start in the 20th position. A little further back, Chris Wright qualified 21st. Ty McIntosh will roll off from the 22nd position. Corey Abbott, 23rd. Jesse Racimus starts 24th.
Ray Bracey, making his season debut, will start in 25th. Josh Robin will roll 26th. Jess Story goes from 27th, and Josh Personette goes from 28th. Johnny Thomas will go 29th, and Chris Stouffer will start 30th. Dustin Dewar 31st. Michael Hosack will roll 32nd. Jaden Racimus goes 33rd, and Jake Scarborough will start 34th. Kyle Hanshaw starts 35th, and Richie Hearn will start in 36th.
Rounding out the field, starting 37th, Seth Rawls, alongside his Shift Esports teammate Nick Indelicato. Mark Revelis starting 39th. Carlos Acosta will start 40th. Michael Goodman lines up 41st. Raymond Hanneman qualified 42nd, but he was the slowest of our open cars tonight, so he is the one car going home and not taking part in the Southern 500. 2 charter guys behind him, Nick Massey and Josh Clark. They will start 42nd and 43rd.
And that's our starting lineup for the Decor Depot Southern 500. And Zach, we've also got a lot of throwbacks out there. We'll definitely be touching on those as this 500-mile race kicks off. But if there's anybody you don't recognize initially, stay tuned. We've got some really good graphics for everybody. I think it'll be a really fun time as we can get our first looks at some of these throwback cars, including this Tony Stewart 1999-2000 style paint scheme starting on the pole for Jonathan Cutlip tonight. That's a pretty good car. It's a good way to start this race.
Definitely, you get Tony Stewart on the pole for tonight's Southern 500. You've got let's see,
Kurt Busch running fourth.
Kurt Busch is fourth, Kevin Harvick fifth, Dick Brooks sixth. So
love to see it.
We're gonna have lots of time to talk about all these beautiful cars over 500 miles tonight.
We sure are. Pace car drops off to the inside. Jonathan Cutlip and Ethan Burrell will lead us to the green flag. And we will get racing for 500 miles here at Darlington Raceway. Green flag is out. Jonathan Cutlip gets on the loud pedal. And we'll go barreling it off into turn one. And maybe the most treacherous part of this track here in turn two. That corner exit. You can't really be side by side through there. See if we have any calamity here in the first lap.
Watching the field rip through turns 1 and 2. Jonathan Cutlip leading the way. Watch them roar by the speed shot, heading down the backstretch into turns 3 and 4. And we are underway here in the Southern 500.
Everybody seemed to mind their P's and Q's. I've got Ty McIntosh in the wall in the middle of the pack. Just a little bit of a scrape there for Ty McIntosh. He grabs himself a Darlington stripe early in this one. And beyond that, a lot of shuffling and moving well in the back of the pack as Jonathan Cutlip leads them off turn 2, down the back straightaway for the second time. 367 laps tonight that these guys are going to have to turn at Darlington. That's a whale of a task for anybody, especially guys who've worked a job all day, and now they have to come in and perform for 500 miles tonight.
I would argue, and certainly we could debate this until the sun goes down, the Southern 500 is probably not the most prestigious of the elite crown jewels. That would obviously be the Daytona 500 on the stock car side. But I would argue this one's the hardest one to win. You have to be just picture perfect for 367 laps around this incredibly technical racetrack. I don't know if it gets, even with the 600 miles at Charlotte, I don't know if it gets harder than this one.
No, it does not. I think you're absolutely right. As we get a look, Chris Wright might have had some contact in the opening laps. He is 27 seconds behind the leaders. Oh, he's missed the grid, did Chris Wright. So he'll be hoping for an early caution here, but this race has started off with a green flag feel as Jonathan Cutlip leads over Ethan Burrell and Gavin Hibbs. And we will break it out here. We had the first of the wall scrapes. Haven't seen or heard another one since. These guys have kept it clean so far from the back of the field, but we do have our Darlington striped counter. We'll be sure to update that one as we go. But Ty McIntosh, the first victim of the Darlington striped counter. I'd go ahead and put a 1 on there, Dave. There you go. Back in the field, bit of battling. Tyler Fode just bypassed Jordan Owens. Leighton Norgard, Justin Fortner, Ryan Gable are all tangled up for about 13th place or so. They're all kind of single file as these guys roll through with this next gen car. One thing, Zach, while we're off to this early start, I want to mention, and maybe we'll go on board here at some point with one of these guys. These guys are shifting 2 times per lap. That's going to be 1,000 shifts, or well, that's going to be like 600. I'm gonna have to do math.
I was told there would be no math.
Yeah, it's gonna be 734 shifts tonight, barring restarts under pure green flag conditions. That's quite a bit of shifting. You'll see the gear right there for Ethan Burrell, and I believe he'll downshift going into turn 3 here.
Of course, turns 3 and 4 being the tighter end of this, what they call egg-shaped circuit here at Darlington. There you see the downshift as he works his way into turn 3. Isn't quite working as close to the wall as Jonathan Cutlip at this point in the race, but the night is young.
Yep, and then there's going to be the shift up to 5th, down the front straightaway, and then Burrell barrels it into turn 1. You keep those RPMs high through turn 1. It's almost like 2 corners turn 1. It's so big and sweepy in that early section, and then it really tightens up coming off of turn 2, and it gets very easy to tag that outside wall, and that's where we've discussed the Darlington stripes and whatnot where these guys are going to find it kind of an easy issue to run into that outside wall. Turn 4, not quite as tight, but you can definitely scrape it through there. It's more of a turn 2 corner exit type of issue. These guys are going to have to be very careful with for all 500 miles tonight.
Absolutely, especially if you're faster than somebody, it's very tempting to try and get around them, but it's just so hard to find a lane. And, well, we see Andrew Rucker's got tried to do that just now at the back of the picture there, but then he did tuck back in line behind the 54 of Hunter Smith.
Yep. Battle behind them, Ray Bracey and Josh Robin were side by side. Robin thought about going after that 7 car. He's going to back it up. How about Ray Bracey? First start in this Elite Cup Series season. I didn't get run it, but he put the Bodine number 7 on it. Here comes Robin to the inside of Bracey. They'll battle once again through turn 3 and 4, but Bracey's going to have that defensive outside line. Should be able to hold off Robin down the front straightaway.
Not only is it Ray Bracey's first start of season, I'm reasonably certain it is his first Cup Series appearance ever here in Elite. As now we look again at this battle between Andrew Rucker and Hunter Smith just a little further up the road. And actually, we've got that's a Leighton Norgard going after Jordan Owens in the Bobby Labonte throwback.
Yep, love this one. We'll get the picture of it here up at some point. We'll break out the graphic to start detailing these cars. Not a typical Bobby Labonte throwback. This one's Jordan Owens running that 1997 Bobby Labonte throwback, and he's under attack now from Jeff Green. Jeff Green throwing to Dale Earnhardt in that 2 car there.
I've got to correct you.
Oh, is it not Dale Earnhardt?
This is Tim Richmond after
Earnhardt
drove that car. There you go. This is why it pays to read the tweets.
Yep, there you go. Tim Richmond over for Jeff Green. But that's really cool scheme, and Jeff's obviously moving up here early. Norgard's fallen back a little bit. Norgard started 9th. He is back to 15th.
And you know,
I got a stripe there on Jordan Owens.
Yep, that was definitely a stripe from Jordan Owens. Somebody was to the inside of him. I did not quite catch who that was.
I think it was Hunter Smith that Owens
very
was
well
running
could
with
have
there.
been.
But I think it's a nowhere, a little paint scrape, but definitely a stripe. That's what I would call that for Jordan Owens. Did Gable just get the wall too?
I'm not sure on that one.
Checking on our end. I think he's okay.
Right now we're looking at, this is just right on the cusp of the top 10. David Tooker in the 19 car is 10th. That's Trey Holmes in the 88 with the Darrell Waltrip's throwback running 11th. And Tyler Fody with one of my favorites tonight, the Pete Hamilton throwback running in that 12th position. Tyler Fody, the only driver in tonight's field who has won this race before. So we'll see if he can make it a 2-time Southern 500 winner this evening.
Yeah, there we go. We finally broke out we got the real images from these cars. Tyler Fody running that Pete Hamilton throwback, and per Tyler, that's the first Superbird win, the Plymouth Superbird, the car with the big wing that ran from 1970 to like 1973 or so in the NASCAR Cup Series. Pete Hamilton won that Daytona 500 in this very scheme, and Tyler throwing back to it, and it's a simple design, but I really quite like it.
And honestly, everybody recognizes that color, the Petty blue. Everybody knows about Richard Petty. There are 3 Richard Petty cars out here tonight, but especially with Fody driving car 40, it's good to see Pete Hamilton get some love. I mean, again, Daytona 500 winner in that car, kind of gets lost in the history of the sport at times. But so cool to see some Pete Hamilton love this evening. Gable went way up the hill that time in turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that outside lane in turn 3 is going to be a preferred way for these guys to make some ground up. Gable almost took it a little too far, but that's kind of Ryan Gable's driving style, right? Is just a little bit close to the edge of control, but just under control enough to make it fast. And I think that's kind of the perfect driving style you have to have for Darlington Raceway.
just behind Gable, you see Justin Fortner in the 26 car. I've always felt like this Rusty Wallace car kind of goes underappreciated in his lineage because he went from Midnight, right? The iconic
We have
Miller
lost Tate
genuine
Lytle.
draft car. Oh, well, that's
Tate
not
Lytle
great.
off the track from 5th spot. He is. Let's see if it's just a temporary disconnection or if he's gone for good. Tate is no longer in the showing up for me, no longer showing up for Dave.
He hasn't gotten the packet loss yet, but he's been gone a long time. I have to feel like it's coming at this point.
That is last week's winner, Tate Lytle, potentially off track. And we know that from discussion with Tate earlier today, he was going to be running in a setup that was a little more driver unfriendly. He was going to have to be dealing with some internet woes potentially regardless, and they have already struck here at lap 20. I guess that's better than him going 200 laps.
Back there, I think we had battle for third there.
Mm-hmm.
Shaping up.
It is no longer, but still Ethan Stanley on the prowl as two Roush throwbacks work against one another, though Ethan Stanley's is his primary scheme.
Yep, there you see Ethan Stanley, the Mark Martin colors on the ends. Oh, Gavin Hibbs might have gotten a piece of wall there in that Kurt Busch throwback, but keeps trucking. Ethan Stanley gets the spot, and indeed, there's the message in the system. Yep. Tate Lytle connection dropped due to packet loss.
And he becomes our first casualty of the Lady in Black, though not of his own making, as there's Gavin Hibbs into the outside wall.
We definitely got to count that one.
That's got it, yep. All right, so I would count that stripe counter up to 3 now, Dave, and I don't know if we got the Gavin Hibbs portion of the stripe counter. Gavin did give us the idea, as he is someone who really loves to get up into that outside wall and run it really close to the fence. I don't think that one's going to hurt the car any. I think there's a very specific point at which we'll know whether these cars are going to be damaged from that outside wall connection.
There we continue to see this battle just outside the top 10. Tyler Fode leading a train of cars. Ryan Gable, Justin Fortner, Leighton Norgard, all lined up nose to tail. They might be pretty content riding like this. I know if I were right behind Tyler Fode, I don't know that I want to pass him. Because if you pass him, are you really faster than him, or are you just burning your stuff up? You know, Hey, this might be a good spot to hang out right here.
Yep, you might be learning a thing or two as well, trying to keep the shifts in order and trying to get in that rhythm, because this is very early in the race. Even one position right now, that might not matter here in about 3 hours. So you've got to race the racetrack. You've got to make sure that you're there at the end. And aggression at this point, not going to benefit you in the slightest. I do want to go back to what you were talking about before with Justin Fortner's Rusty Wallace paint scheme, because I agree. I don't know if this is my favorite of the Rusty Wallace paint schemes, but I do think it's underappreciated.
Right. I mean, he went from, the iconic. Oh, Andrew
I would
Rucker,
drop a number.
definitely.
I'd drop a number 4 there on Rucker.
But yeah, this was kind of in between the Miller Lite blue and white cars and the iconic black and gold Miller genuine draft cars. It kind of gets lost into shuffle. I'm biased towards it.
Right in front.
96 was one of the first years I started watching regularly, but indeed, as David noted, Ryan Gable getting around Tyler Fode to pick up a spot. Now we see this is Scott Crump working his way around Gavin Hibbs as they go through turns 3 and 4 here on lap 26. Scott Crump with the Dick Brooks throwback.
I'm excited to talk about this Scott Crump throwback, and I don't know if I want to break it out just yet. Right, we're at lap 27. Got a lot of stories to tell, potentially a lot of stuff to discuss. But this is a really great throwback, and for a really great reason. And Scott's already up in P4. We note that Ethan Stanley has bypassed Ethan Burrell, and Chris Wright has gone a lap down after missing the start of this one. But long time to go yet for Chris Wright. He might yet be able to get back into this race, given a caution flag in the upcoming laps. We do have stages in this race. We haven't yet to mention that. And the caution will not be thrown at those stages, but there will be points awarded for the top 10 and a playoff point awarded for the race leader. Stages at 115 and 230 for these guys, and Gavin Hibbs just smacked the wall. I would throw another stripe on, as that one was a little bit more strong of a contact there for Gavin Hibbs. But yeah, lap 115 and 230 will be the laps we are looking for here going forward?
Leighton Norgard just got very out of shape out turn 4, kept it pointed the right direction, but he continues to fall backwards through this field, like you mentioned.
Oh, he's
And he really had to get out of it to keep from squeezing Hunter Smith into the wall there, going through turns
he
1
got
and
into
2.
him again.
Ah, man. And now you got really, I understand wanting to fight the good fight, but clearly that car is not handling well. Maybe back out of this, fall in behind Zach Rogers in that one car and try to get your rhythm back.
Norgard not content. He's still fighting on that inside, but it seems like the rear tires have gone away on that 12 car. This car seems a little bit loose to me, as opposed to some of these other cars that we've seen push tight on these corner exits. That car, the rear tire is kind of starting to give way, and on that, when he gets on the throttle, that thing gets out of shape.
There for Andrew Rucker.
That's another car starting to lose tires. So lap 30 looks to be about the time these tires start to go away on some of these drivers. Now we'll see who's conserved their stuff better, right? You'll look at guys like Zach Rogers. That's a guy that I always look to as someone who's conserving their stuff. Ethan Stanley and Scott Crump are making hay right now. They just blew around Ethan Burrell. They're starting to come up on Jonathan Cutlip. I wonder if Cutlip is saving his tires as well, or if he's just really quite quick, because that car is pulled out to a 2-second late.
There you see the timing information. Jonathan Cutlip stretching out that lead on Ethan Stanley.
Battle back here for about 20th between Corey Abbott and Ty McIntosh. That wound up not resulting in a wreck, but it kind of looked like it was about to. There's Ty bouncing it off the fence. I don't even know if I'd count that as a Darlington stripe. I think he's just kind of driving the track. Same for Indelicato there, bouncing it off the wall. Kind of how these guys are going to be with this next-gen car. I think they're going to be a little rough with it.
Well, we know these things can take a little bit of abuse, and certainly that's part of the game here at Darlington, right? You got to run right up against the fence, as Andrew Rucker does get into the fence there.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fortner got some of the wall there off of turn 2 as well.
If we keep saying that, that counter's going to need triple digits. And Jeff Story cracked the wall off of turn 2. I'd give him a Darlington stripe for that as well, but that is going to end Story's night. He has disconnected the 29 car, and RK Motorsports is down one more driver tonight. I don't know that Darren Staff ever connected, so they're down to just Carlos Acosta.
You know what? I believe you are, because that would have been, what, car 55? Yeah, it does not look like Darren Staff joined us this evening. So
made him a throwback and everything, and
yeah,
didn't join.
Yeah, he had the throwback ready to go. And if I'm not mistaken, he designed it himself. I know he paints a lot of cars. I'm pretty sure that was his own work.
He painted the 02 car of Carlos Acosta.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Usually he handles the design work over at RK Motorsports.
I was thinking there would be more on there. More of them on there. Oh, Revilis bounces it off the wall with Carlos going underneath. Good time to jump back here for this battle for 36th. And Carlos doing a smart thing right there, backing out of it. They're battling for deep in the field, trying to just get through this race. I really love this paint scheme, though, by Carlos Acosta and that 02 as we jump that stripe counter into double digits. That thing is the 2001 Ryan Newman car.
Made a handful of cup starts that year. I believe that was the year he almost won the Open. And Jake Scarborough done for the evening.
Another one. Just, it's so easy, right, to bounce it off the wall and wind up with some damage, but some of these guys don't have points to run for, right? Jake Scarborough, Just Story, open drivers. They should probably fix that damage and come back out and turn a few more laps. That's kind of my thought, but ultimately they decide their night more worthy than trying to salvage points in this 500-mile race.
It's tough, right? Especially when there's a long green flag run to start the race. It's one thing if you see a couple of early yellows, as now we see a battle here. That's Trey Holmes and Chad Frankenfield battling for 9th.
Mm-hmm. Chad throwing back to himself, which is also a throwback to the 2014 Brad Keselowski car. But the car Chad gave us was the one that he ran in the Daytona 500 and won that Daytona 500 a few years ago. Trey in that Darrell Waltrip throwback to the Budweiser days. That thing looks really good. I want to say that's a Jonathan Cutlip painted car, and it's very, very excellently painted. It just looks perfect.
Man, Trey Holmes, especially considering he had Ryan Gable right on his left rear, I'm really surprised by the run he got out of turn 4 that time. And now he's got to try to set up Chad out of turn 2. Don't think he got quite the run he wanted, but I really like that line he had there.
Yeah, that was definitely a power move. Trey is one of those guys that he definitely can save the tire in this next gen car as Chad comes off turn 4 and bounces off the wall. Add a stripe counter to the machine, and both Lake Norman Chevys will capitalize and pick up 2 spots each.
Fody here.
Gable is a bit slow there in turn 2. Fody had to back out of it. Now Chad's going to be back after the 40 car.
Getting dicey here as we're 40 laps into this green flag run to start the Din Depot Decor Southern 500.
You got it. There it is.
Oh boy.
Stanley just
enemy.
Stanley up near the front just bashed into Michael Goodman because Goody was kind of in his way, and Goody ends up smacking the wall off turn 2, and that cost him about a second.
Is that Goody?
I think it's Goody. There are 3 Richard Petty cars, but I swear I saw 44 there. Yeah, it's Goody.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was looking at number 44. I wasn't necessarily looking at the Petty car. Goody's now going to have right front damage. That's not going to help the handling of the car running in P39.
No, that was a pretty hefty lick. Is checking in on the leader. You see Jonathan Cutlip, his lead of 2 seconds over Ethan Stanley at the moment. Scott Crow trying to reel in Ethan Stanley for that second spot.
Then it is Ethan Burrell in third, Crump in third, Ethan Burrell in fourth. Matthew Weeks has risen to fifth, and he's got Justin Wadsworth right on his back bumper. That's a battle for that 5th position. Weeks, a guy who has talked at length about his desire to win this Southern 500. You mentioned the only driver in this field to have won this race before was Tyler Fody. Matthew Weeks, the only of those Pro Edge cars, well, I guess he and David Tooker have not won a race yet this season, but seeing Tate Lytle take the win last week in a race that Weeks led the white flag lap, seeing his teammate Ethan Burrell win the Daytona 500 in a race he finished 4th in, Matthew Weeks is starting to wonder where victory lane is for this 11 car. He's had very, very good pace all season long, and he's got a really nice Jeff Burton throwback on the car this week. This is his favorite racetrack. I just think this guy is poised to have a really good night tonight. Presuming he stays in the lobby. There he is. Yep, we're good.
And yeah, I mean, with Matthew Weeks, it's been an interesting week. Not just with obviously last week here in the Cup Series, but also he arguably should have won Monday night in the Grand National Series at Twin Ring Motegi. Late caution taking away that shot at the victory. No doubt he's going to be one of the most motivated drivers in the field to pick up this one tonight.
Right, and I don't know. We didn't discuss it before. I'm not sure if we have the last week throwback. We sometimes have. But last week, if you recall, Ethan Stanley got into the left side door of Matthew Weeks entering turn 1 on the last lap at Pocono and shot him up the racetrack. Weeks winds up finishing well back, and he and Stanley had words in the post-race, effectively, as Weeks dumped Stanley, the second-place finisher, post the checkered flag.
Right now you see Weeks reeling in Ethan Burrell. That would be a battle for the 4th position.
Between teammates as well. I expect Burrell to find a way to hand that position over to Weeks without losing the 2 of them any time. Battle also worth noting, Ryan Gable has bypassed Gavin Hibbs. That's back there for that 9th position. So as Weeks goes around Burrell, Wadsworth tries to follow. The Gavel and Tyler Fody starting to move towards the front. There's 2 battles right here. Tyler Fody going after Hibbs, and then Burrell's got under fire from Justin Wadsworth and David Tooker. I think both of them got by Ethan Burrell, and Gavin Hibbs also backsliding, and he's going to get passed by Tyler Fody and probably by Trey Holmes in the coming laps. Sorry, I'm bouncing you back and forth here, Dave.
So here we see Gavin Hibbs in the 95. Trey Holmes got to try to set him up. He's got a big run on the outside of 3 and 4 here. And Gavin just kind of has to give him the lane. Trey Holmes has probably got to easily get in front of Gavin Hibbs here before we get into 1 and 2. Indeed, Gavin pretty much lets him have that one rather than try to fight him into turns 1 and 2.
And Gavin's definitely run into an issue where that car is starting to wear, and he bounced it off the fence again. I think we might need to give him another Gavin Hibbs Darlington stripe. He'll live on that wall, but as it stands, Gavin Hibbs starting to fall back. And I think if you're hoping for a good Gavin Hibbs run, you need him to conserve that car just a little bit more. There is a long way to go.
It's definitely been a little bit of a rough start, rougher than you would like for Gavin Hibbs. Again, this car is pretty beefy, pretty tanky, but you still don't want to go... You don't want to make too many withdrawals from the bank deposit this early in the race, right?
Right.
Anytime you get into the wall, you risk that wheel damage or some significant aero damage that could really just set you behind for the rest of the evening. As now we look at Ryan Gable working his way around Ethan Burrell. That will move Gable up to the 7th position in car 01.
Michael Hosak looks like he might have come off pit road just now. Or he is, yeah, I think Michael Hosak has gone down pit road and rejoined the field. That or I think this car might have gotten in the fence. Then let's see if I can't find what happened there. No, he just backed out of it. He just backed out of it to let the leaders by. That's what happened there.
Just behind Hosak, we had a side-by-side ever so briefly. I'm not sure.
I believe it was Frankenfield and Hibbs. They're still battling back there, right behind him. Jeff Green looking on in that number 2 Tim Richmond car.
So again, Frankenfield will look to the inside of Gavin Hibbs. This is a battle for the 11th position. Hibbs got awfully close to the wall there. I don't think he got into it, but you could tell Chad knew how close Gavin was to that wall. Now he's got to try to complete the pass in the 1 and 2. He's got to slide up in front of Gavin Hibbs, and he did in just enough of an awkward fashion that's left the door open for Jeff Green, but he couldn't get the run out of turn 2.
It's tough to cut down the track there in turn 2. You can do it in turns 3 and 4 here at Darlington, but that 1 and 2 line, there's really only one groove there. You kind of want to... Oh, Hibbs in the wall. Step down all the way to the apron to avoid. I think Jeff Green managed to get away with that one. He might lose this spot to Leighton Norgard. No, he's going to hold on to it. Give another Darlington stripe to Gavin Hibbs, that 95 car. 54 laps. I'd say he's got, what, 4 or 5?
He's got more than he would like. He's starting to regret the idea if it indeed was his. As now Leighton Norgard will work his way around Jeff Green, and Hunter Smith is going to have thoughts of picking up a position as well.
Yeah, and we talk about that, you know, that aggression. You want to hold off on really going hard. You'll burn your tires off, etc. I think you'd probably need some selective aggression, right? Hunter Smith, Leighton Norgard are trying to capitalize on the misfortune of Jeff Green having to dodge Gavin Hibbs bouncing off the wall. They already see Gavin Hibbs is somewhat slow ahead of them. Now's the time to make the withdrawal on the deposit of those tires on this run, because you're going to pit here soon, and these guys are hunting for that track position should that caution flag come out. As we get a look, last car on the lead lap here, I think that's Seth Rawls in the 26, is it not?
That is Seth Rawls, and it looks like he is bringing his car to pit road here. So is
Josh Robin.
Is that Josh Robin in the 8 car?
We also have one of the petty cars on pit road. I think that's Michael Goodman. It is indeed. So pit stops are starting. These guys are finally getting into the pit cycle. And there is a big battle right in front of Ethan Stanley on the back straightaway. Carlos Acosta, Mark Rabilas, Josh Clark all wadded up right in front of Stanley. Rabilas got the fence. He got into Carlos. They're both going to get the wall here, and Stanley's going to shoot by on the bottom.
And now Carlos is just able to
Rabilas got it again. Dave, if you're counting Darlington, I just count 1 for that whole incident there. There was about 3 or 4 of them. But we'll get the counter up way too high.
And man, Ethan Stanley had to be pretty on his feet there to get through that without any issue. Especially off of turn 4, he kind of made one move to get around Josh Clark, and then Clark's car kind of just darted in front of him, and he had to adjust really quickly to avoid getting into the back of him.
Yeah, good work by Ethan Stanley. Stay out of the lap traffic, and I can tell you right now, there will be an incident between a lead lap car and a lapped car in this race. I think that's safe to assume, given the potential for these lapped cars, for the tire degradation and the difference in speed. We are going to see some real problems for lapped cars and the lead lap cars in this race. And as we look back here at Scott Crump in third, he is now 6 seconds behind race leader Jonathan Cutlip and 4 seconds behind his teammate Ethan Stanley. Those front two have really pulled a gap on this battle for third.
And Matthew Weeks is really applying the pressure to Scott Crump, and Justin Wadsworth is closing in on them in that number 6 machine as well.
Yeah, he sure is. And we haven't mentioned it yet, but the Justin Wadsworth's got a Jeff Gordon Rainbow throwback on that 6 car, and I want to say 24 car if I'm talking about Jeff Gordon. So a little bit awkward, I would say, especially for someone who is a fan of the typical number 6 driver.
I'm resisting the urge to call it blasphemous.
Wadsworth running that Jeff Gordon scheme for his sponsor. And it's a good one. It's a good scheme, obviously. It's just it's on the 6 car, a little funky, especially given their championship battles there in the late 90s. And I was not a NASCAR fan at that point, as the continued battle between Matthew Weeks and Scott Crump heats up and right in front of Justin Wadsworth.
Oh, there's contact. Can Scott Crump hang on to it? Oh, there was definitely contact. I don't know if Crump got loose first, but there was definitely some contact.
And we saw contact between Matthew Weeks and a member of that team last week, as here comes Fresh Tires and Michael Goodman and the 6th place car David Tooker. And the 7th place car Ryan Gable. They're coming up right up on this battle. Crump is not he's like an elephant. He don't forget very easily. So
no, I definitely think that's one that we could see come back later in the race, but right now everything's square with them, and Michael Goodman I'm gonna have to assume fresher tires, trying to work his way around Scott Crump.
Michael Goodman has made it down to pit road. A couple of the guys that are starting to move their way forward as I kind of look back through the field. One guy we haven't spoken about yet, as we get a look at Ray Bracey, Justin Fortner, and Andrew Rucker. That's Bracey passing Fortner for 18th. The guy I wanted to shout out is behind these guys by a few seconds. That's Nick Massey in the 48, just bypassed Ty McIntosh in the 35. And Massey started dead last on the field. He's up to 24th in this long green flag run. That's a guy I think is going to be present at the end of this race. He finished in the top 3 last week. We got to talk to him with that podium. I feel like Nick Massey, this is a kind of race where if he picks up a caution, is able to gather that track position back up. He's currently 25 seconds behind the race leader. Give him that track position, give him a chance on the lead lap late in this race, and I think Nick Massey could have something to say for these guys.
Nick Massey, 3rd place finisher in last year's Southern 500, won by R.C. Enerson.
Good statistic there. He's also good at Darlington. Battle upcoming maybe for 9th, as we get a look at the battle between Chad Frankenfield and Ethan Burrell for 10th. It's not much of a battle anymore. Burrell allows Chad to go by, and we jump up to that battle for 9th. Trey Holmes is working over Tyler Fode.
Tyler Fode leading the way. Trey Holmes was definitely closer right before the camera cut. I think Trey got a little upset out of turn 4, but we've seen how much speed he's had on this long run. Imagine he will be able to close right back in. Although I am starting to wonder, what kind of fuel mileage are we looking at here, closing in on the 70 lap mark for these machines?
I think it's 75 to 80. I might need to gather a double check. Maybe we'll talk to Robert Hill in race control and see if he's got anything on that. But I do believe they have to pit before we get to lap 115 for the stage. And those guys that have already pitted have short pitted to try and gain some track position back. So that's Michael Goodman, Seth Rawls, Josh Robin that have worked that strategy. Up front, I do want to note the car that's coming is Matthew Weeks. That 11 car he just gave up a little bit of time, but he had rocketed down to 4 seconds, the gap to Jonathan Cutlip, and he had closed up to 3 seconds away from Ethan Stanley. And Justin Wadsworth is just following in the tire tracks of that 11 car. So the 11 and the 6 really starting to move forward now, and they've really taken care of their stuff here in the early part of this race.
We'll see.
Ooh, Personette gets the wall.
Yeah, I was about to say Matthew Weeks work his way around Josh Personette in that Dave Marcus throwback, but Personette may have gotten a little piece of the wall, and now that's got to allow Justin Wadsworth to get a big run down the backstretch, and he should get his way around Personette here as well.
Great looking Dave Marcus throwback. Do we have the real life photo of the Dave Marcus car, Dave? Awesome. 2002 one as well. That's a good race. 2002 Daytona 500. That's one of my favorites.
You would say that. You would say that. The last start for Dave Marcus, if I remember correctly, but also the day Ward Burton won the Daytona 500. As we look at Jeff Green coming down pit road.
Jeff Green was in that race too.
He sure was, and then he led about 50 laps the next week at Rockingham.
That's absolutely right. Jeff Green running the 30 car at that point for Richard Childress Racing. Don't think that ended up going over well. There's a big stack up for Matthew Weeks and Justin Wadsworth. The 47 car, I think that's Chris Stouffer, and Chris Wright are side by side. They're 3 wide on the back straightaway as we're looking at pit road entrance. Gavin Hibbs trying to make pit road. Weeks and Wadsworth made it through without causing a wreck. That was absolutely excellent, and Ethan Stanley is on pit road.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that didn't end in disaster. Those cars were 3 wide going down the back stretches. Now we check in Ethan Stanley on pit road, as you mentioned. We're definitely getting into the thick of the pit stops now. Yep. We'll see.
Here comes Cutlip this lap.
Justin Fortner speeding on pit road.
Yep, Fortner speeds. Cutlip coming in. He's following Johnny Thomas down pit road. Looks like Trey Holmes has been down pit road. Nick Indelicato is on pit road. And the lap leader this time, Matthew Weeks in the 11 car. Give him the bonus point for leading a lap. Wadsworth stays out behind him. Scott Crump stays out behind them.
And let me tell you, this is an incredibly difficult pit entrance. Especially under green flag, you're running right up against the fence. Normally, you got to get all the way to the bottom, get the car woed up to 45 miles an hour, and you're just going across what feels like forever a flat racetrack to get there on 70-lap-old tires. It is about as tough as it. Dover's probably tougher, just because it's the opposite problem. The track's so claustrophobic, it's hard to make it on pit road without getting run into. But Darlington's up there as far as most difficult green flag pit entries.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. As Jordan Owens and I think Scott Crump's going to come this time. Yep, 90 car coming down pit road. I was going to try to get us an onboard, see if somebody would call it out early. I don't know if we're going to get there, but it's not an easy pit road to get onto. You have to cut from the top of the racetrack all the way across that flat apron, like Zach said, and get inside of the cones. There's a wall to your right. Very easy for that rear end to get light, slide sideways, bounce it off the cones. You miss pit road entirely. Very, very difficult pit road to get on as here comes Justin Wadsworth in the 6 car.
We might be able to jump on board with Matthew Weeks and see his pit entry now that he's pretty much the last of the leaders. I can't imagine he'll be taking too many more laps here. You see him letting a Leighton Norgard by as they pass the start-finish line. I believe that is Chad Frankenfield that also... No, that's Seth Rawls, excuse me.
Yep. Clark's about to get by him here as well, but Weeks takes that bottom lane. Let's see if he heads down pit road. Kind of looking like it. Oh, he got hit! Yeah. He got hit by Rucker. We didn't see it. Yeah, but you can see he is struggling to get on pit road because he got hit by the 64 car. We don't have access to that rear view mirror, but Matthew Weeks did get hit by Andrew Rucker as he went down pit road. Right behind him is Ray Bracey.
Yeah, we'll take a look and see what happened here with Matthew Weeks. So it looks like Rucker's trying to get around Clark. If Weeks hadn't called out that he was pitting, I don't know that Rucker would have been expecting him to check up there.
No, and there might be damage to Weeks, and I think Weeks also overshot his pit box. So a pretty disastrous first green flag pit cycle for Matthew Weeks. Because I think there is some damage on the right rear of that race car. And that will eventually turn the lead over to Ethan Stanley, who is right in front of Jonathan Cutlip on the racetrack here. They are tracking around right now. And they have already bypassed Matthew Weeks on pit exit. So next time by, Ethan Stanley will be the leader of this race.
There you see Ethan Stanley ahead of Jonathan Cutlip.
Just barely. He undercut him by just a couple of laps, but that was enough to gain him 2 seconds plus that small gap you see right there. And they have put Dustin Dewar and Nick Massey both a lap down. We've lapped up to 26th place. That's Jesse Racimus in the 70. Michael Waltrip throwback right in front of race leader Ethan Stanley. He's going to be battling Johnny Thomas.
Another thing to keep in mind here is I'm starting to see some longer shadows on the racetrack. Just like the real Southern 500 now, the sun's going to start going down here. That's going to bring the track temperatures down, and it's got to change how these cars handle over the course of this race. So, you know, in case this race wasn't challenging enough, right? That you also have to keep that in mind over the next, just shy of 300 laps.
Yep. Chad Frankenfield running 9th. I agree completely. Man, seeing some wild stuff on my screen. Hunter Smith's car bounced in the air there for a second. But Stanley holding the lead, not able to get up by these lapped cars. It seems like everybody's running just about the same pace as that race leader right now. A look into the middle of the top 5.
Wall there.
He did. Hooker and Holmes battling for 5th. Tyler Fode's up to 4th. So guys with a really good set of green flag stops there. Obviously Stanley and Cutlip, Ryan Gable and Tyler Fode. And then those two. Guys with a rough pit stop were Matthew Weeks, Scott Crump. He's back in 7th. Ethan Burrell is nowhere to be found. He's back in 21st.
And look at this wad of traffic in front of Ethan Stanley. You've got Jesse Racimus, Tate Lytle.
It's Johnny Thomas.
They are still arguing over the Matthew Weeks Andrew Rucker thing in the voice chat, which is at some point you gotta shut up and drive.
Yep. I'm certain Weeks isn't happy, but
well,
you can call it out or you can not and try to go for the surprise, but the surprise has some risk.
So the thing is, it sounds like from what I'm gathering, Weeks did call it out. Rucker didn't hear it. And so Rucker's mad that a car just stopped in front of him on the racing line, but if Weeks called it out, then... And that look, that's one thing that, if I had to gripe about iRacing a little bit, the in-game voice chat, you can only hear one voice at a time. So if somebody else was talking at even close to the same time, it's possible that...
Robin!
Especially if it was a driver, maybe Rucker has a team chat or anything like that, then he could have entirely not heard Matthew Weeks, but if Matthew Weeks called it out, he called it out.
Yep. He sure did. Yeah, and that's just a tough break, but this is a long race. There's a lot of racing still to go for Matthew Weeks. He can definitely get back into this race. He's just got to stay patient, and that's something that Matthew Weeks has struggled with a little bit this season is finding that level head, that patience to be able to line up some of these finishes. As Ethan Stanley starting to come under fire from Jonathan Cutlip and the Tony Stewart car. This is some serious 2001 looking stuff here at Darlington right now with Mark Martin, Tony Stewart cars out in front, following a Michael Waltrip car that's about to go a lap down.
You did not have to throw that shade at Michael Waltrip like that.
His 2001 was miserable. Now that 15 car went on, as Johnny Thomas gets a Darlington stripe. 15 car went on to have some really good years. That 2001 car, that won the race in the Daytona 500, and it finished second in the Pepsi 400. And I think it had one more top 5 finish the whole season. Beyond that, it was miserable for poor Michael Waltrip.
All right, now. Yeah, Ethan Stanley's got to be feeling pretty miserable. He's been following these guys for several laps now, and you know they're catching behind him. I mean, Jonathan Cutlip is there.
Right.
And fortunately, there's a little bit of a buffer, about 10 seconds back to 9.5 seconds back to Ryan Gable. But at some point, we got to start finding a way around these guys.
It's just tough. This next gen car, everybody's very, very close in speed. So even these cars that are race leaders, and Stanley and Cutlip, they're rather simply not that much faster, right? Over a lap over lap basis, especially with fresh tires.
Jonathan Cutlip looking to the inside of Ethan Stanley. This is a battle for the lead as they work their way out of turn 4. I think Stanley's going to have to run to hold on to the spot for now, indeed. So Cutlip will tuck back in line and maybe set up another run here.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of that until the tires start to wear 20 or 30 laps into this run. Worth noting again, as Stanley is going to start to look for a way around Jesse Racimus, almost as if the attempted pass by Cutlip woke up the 91 car and said, hey, it's time to go. We need to get around these guys. We are going to lap 115 for that stage. So these two, Cutlip and Stanley, battling for that stage point. And that'll be very important for a guy who's already won a race this season in Ethan Stanley to pick up those playoff points going into that chase as Jesse Racimus loose off turn 2.
That will at least get one of those lap cars out of the way. Next
come up. Who's next on?
Next up, Johnny Thomas in the 83 car.
It's funny that they've run up on another 2 lapped cars. Ty McIntosh has gotten to the back bumper of Michael Hosack and Josh Clark, who were 2 of the first cars to pit on this cycle. And Clark just bounced off the fence. He's going to check him up in front of the race leaders. McIntosh cuts to the bottom. He'll get around Hosack. This is going to be tight.
This is really sketchy stuff here. Ethan Stanley doesn't want to get into these guys, and Johnny Thomas is the last guy that's going to want to get involved in this lead battle, but he really had nowhere to go there trying to get out of the way.
And Josh Clark is on very old tires compared to everybody around him right now. That's one of the first cars to hit pit road in the 28. There's going to be a big speed difference here. Hosack into the wall off 2, and Stanley with an evasive move to go underneath the 28 and avoid it just in case that car made contact with the wall. It will make contact with the wall in 3 and 4. And it'll go a lap down as Stanley through. Cutlip will find his way through the Josh Clark machine, and the battle for the lead will rage on. They lost about a half second to Ryan Gable and Tyler Fode there, maybe just a little bit more.
And more importantly, Jonathan Cutlip lost about a half second on Ethan Stanley in that wad of cars, as now Ethan Stanley will have to work his way around Michael Goodman. He will be able to do so before they get into turn 3. So now, depending on where Jonathan Cutlip catches that 44 car, we'll see if that lead adjusts further.
Yep. Let's see if who's really faster here now that they're going to be able to sort out, get it into some clean laps. I think Cutlip's probably a little bit quicker. He's got a couple lap fresher tires on that 5 car as Personette bounces off the wall.
Yeah, Personette getting into the wall as he was laying by Ryan Gable, Tyler Fode, Scott Crump, all these top 5 cars, and I believe that's Carlos Acosta that is now side by side with Josh Personette with your 6th place car of David Tooker behind them. But there you see Scott Crump working his way into the 4th position around Tyler Fode.
I think now is a good time to get into the Scott Crump's car story here. I really do like this Dick Brooks number 90 throwback, and Scott told me that his grandfather was on the Junie Donlevy racing team and since the 70s until they closed shop, so that's the reason Scott always runs the number 90 car. I think that's really cool, and I don't know that I ever knew that, but I knew Scott ran some of these Junie Donlevy paint schemes from the 90s and the in the 80s, and hi to his grandpa if he's watching the race. Scott said he watches them all, so Scott's running really good right now, running fourth.
And doing some homework for the race in these throwback races, I guess I learned. I didn't go as far as to look at the Dunleavy ownership stats, but as far as the car number 90 stats in the Cup Series, I did not realize Dick Brooks made 175 starts under that car number with that team over the years, and that's more than anybody else in the Cup Series to drive a car number 90. So that kind of took me by surprise. I did not realize he had such tenure with that team over the years. But yes, very cool story. And of course, Dick Brooks went on to also be part of the MRN broadcast team after his driving career was done.
That's absolutely awesome. Good nuggets, good history for this 90 car as we go on board with Scott Crump, and as he follows in the tire tracks of his teammate Ryan Gable, we watch how Scott's going to be navigating this Darlington track in the car that Dick Brooks probably ran Darlington. What'd you say? 175 starts, so like 10 or 12 of those were Darlington.
I could find that out reasonably quickly.
Scott Crump to the inside of Ryan Gable, and this place, I think they repaved it in. Oh man, we can look that up too. When did they last repave Darlington?
That would have been late aughts, early teens, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so not the same surface, but the same layout. It's been just like this for.
Well, no, not even the same layout. They would have flipped start finish. Let's not forget that.
Oh, they did flip start finish.
Dick Brooks always ran it where the narrow end was turns 3 and 4. Where
1 and 2.
1 and 2, where the minnow pond is behind turn 2 instead of turn 4. Right.
Yep, the famous story that the Darlington racetrack was built in this shape because there's a minnow pond there at the bottom of your screen, and in the construction of the Darlington Speedway, the owner had to dodge the minnow pond, and therefore constructed the track slightly imbalanced, and therefore created some of the best and most technical racing that you see in real life, you see on this simulator, you see on everything, because of just the differences in each corner make things so much more difficult for these drivers to navigate. And we've seen it already. We've got a big stripe counter. We've gotten a really long green flag run where these guys have focused very heavily on driving the racetrack and not each other. Only had a couple of major incidents to this point.
Just to follow up on the Dick Brooks point, 30 career starts at Darlington, best finish of 2nd. He did that twice. His best finish in car 90, 6th place in the Southern 500, both in 76 and 84.
Awesome. What a great stat. As Ethan Stanley continues to lead over Jonathan Cutlip by 0.3 of a second. And they are hunting Ty McIntosh and Corey Abbott, this battle for 20th. They're trying to put them a lap down. Just behind. They'll come onto frame right now. McIntosh and Abbott obviously hoping for a caution, or hoping for those leaders to start battling so they can pull away a little bit. Corey's run that Terry Labonte throwback the whole season, but it is considered a throwback, so we marked it up as such.
Definitely a sharp-looking race car, that 21 machine. We've talked about it a couple of times already this season. And coincidentally, Terry Labonte on track is behind his brother Bobby at the moment.
He is indeed. Jordan Owens just up the road in the 1997 Texas inaugural car. You can see it there on the bottom of your screen. And Owens running the throwback, as that was the very first race at Texas Motor Speedway, and the interstate batteries. This Zach told me. I have to credit Zach. He gave me the info on this. Interstate Battery sponsored the race. They ran the special scheme with the Texas flag on the hood, the big star. Owens throwing back to that tonight in this Southern 500.
Looking on from the blimp cam, thanks to Whiplash Sim Cams, is Jordan Owens running in the 19th position at the moment. Right now, we've got an interesting little wad here. Scott Crump, Ryan Gable, Tyler Fody trying to work through a little bit of traffic. Scott Crump just got checked up a little bit by Josh Clark here. I believe that is out of turn 2. It is. Of course, these guys are third, fourth, and so on back.
Yep. Scott works to the inside of Clark. Gable will follow. Not yet. Oh, now there he goes, down to the inside. And Gable makes his way around Josh Clark. Now Tyler Fody will have to work his way by the lapped car. That's just in front of Clark's teammate David Tucker. Battle back there for 8th. Matthew Weeks going after Chad Frankenfield. He'll get it, Chad.
He'll get it.
Chad Frankenfield let someone by. You know, Chad did say he was trying to do more of that and, you know, focus on racing the racetrack, focus on, you know, understanding when the competitors around him were in a better position, try not to cause further incidents. And right there, a good move by Chad Frankenfield. I think Trey Holmes might have gotten the fence.
Well, we joke about it. We are probably critical out of fun at times of Chad Frankenfield and his aggressive nature, but certainly it has hurt him at times at Darlington. He is part of a long list of drivers who unfortunately have fewer top 10s than me in the Southern 500. He has 0. His best finish is 12th in the 2021 season.
Right. And Chad obviously pulled out a throwback to a race he won in that, I think 2021 Daytona 500. So, you know, he wants to conjure up some of that winning magic. And right now, what that means is keep that race car clean. Keep it on the racetrack. Don't hit the wall too much. Take no reserves from the bank and hit all your marks for your green flag pit stops. And he's also going to pick up a few stage points here, barring something catastrophic.
Definitely in position to pick up a couple of those stage points. And that's another thing with these full distance races. They do literally have more points on the line with those stage points, those stage checkpoints along the way. So it's important to run well in these races, because even if you maybe don't get the finish you hope for, if you can be up front at these stage marks, you can salvage the evening from a point standpoint.
Right. So Ethan Stanley and Jonathan Cutlip will battle for the stage win up front, as looks like Josh Clark got in between Chad Frankenfield and his goal for that 9th place run at the stage here. Stanley and Cutlip will come up on Corey Abbott. That may play a part in whether or not they get to the stage. They have put a lap on Ty McIntosh. This is going to be a big battle for the stage. This is where Cutlip has to start to charge.
Well, there, right in front of Ethan Stanley.
Just barely. I don't know if it's slowed up to 21 any. 2 laps to go towards the stage break. I call it a break. They call it a break in the real racing, but there will not be a caution thrown at lap 115. They will continue to race.
Now it's the end of 115, right?
Right. Yes.
So it's actually it'll be 2 this time. Yeah. As Corey Abbott gives way to the top 2, the drivers fighting for that stage win.
Stanley comes by, 2 laps to go. Cutlip not able to mount a charge. In fact, he lost a 10th that lap.
Yeah, it doesn't look like lap traffic is going to be well, I say that, and now you see Jordan Owens had to get... Oh, that's a car.
Delicato on the bottom. Delicato down a lap. That's the Jeff Green throwback. We'll take a look at that as Stanley to the line. He will get one more to go for that playoff point from our Texas Legacy winner. Cutlip is gaining. He's made up that 10th he lost, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's going to have to fire it in from well back. Is Jonathan Cutlip, and I just don't think that's worth it. Cutlip is going to need the points. Yeah, Cutlip is going to need the points since he's had such a disastrous start to the season. But a win at Darlington would cure all ailments for Jonathan Cutlip.
So Ethan Stanley, the winner of the first stage. Again, no caution here. We're going to keep racing. Continue this
Continue on.
green flag run.
Battle for that ninth spot. Chad Frankenfield.
Oh!
Fortner in the wall in front of the leaders. That'll give the
And there
lead
we
to Jonathan
go.
Cutlip. One lap too late for Jonathan Cutlip.
I don't know
Wadsworth
if
took
it's
over.
ever too late this early in the race.
Yep. Might work out for the next stage, but for this one, Stanley was able to hold on. Worth noting that Justin Wadsworth picked up ninth over Chad Frankenfield the lap after the stage ended. So Wadsworth only able to grab the 1 point, but it is a point for that 6 car, and a good result for Justin Wadsworth. Matthew Weeks picked up the 8th place stage, but the 7th place stage, and he's continuing to march forward. He's getting close to David Tooker, Tyler Fody, Ryan Gable, and Scott Crump.
I don't know about you, David, but would you have guessed we'd go 118 laps to start the Southern 500 without a caution?
I would not have. No, that was shocking. Honestly, to this point. I mean, I would have expected these guys to wad it up early and then maybe get a green flag run, but Darlington is the type of track that can string out and can run green. We saw that incident with Nick and Delicato on the back straightaway a few laps ago.
Won't be the first tally I've gotten this season.
And won't be the last.
I hope it is.
Nick Massey just bounced off the fence down the back straightaway. Caught it because I was looking at Nick and Delicato. Should we run in and perform our sponsor reads here now that we've finished stage 1? Got to open it up. Might even pay some bills, run some ads.
I'm fine with that.
Flames will burn and sparks will fly at the NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Kickoff race weekend in style with 2 qualifying sessions in one day, plus the can't-miss show of Nitro Under the Lights on Friday, September 27th. Get tickets at WWTRaceway.com with kids 12 and under free and general admission. The NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
we're back, I believe. This Den Depot Southern 500. Let's see if I can get Dave going on the ad reads. We good? We're back?
Well, hopefully,
Technical.
there we go.
Technical
No?
difficulties on our end. Stream looks to be live on
Okay.
YouTube. Jonathan Cutlip leading over Ethan Stanley now by about half a second. They just put a lap on Jordan Owens.
Jonathan Cutlip, of course, taking the lead just after the end of the first stage here, as Ethan Stanley will be the next to try to get around Jordan Owens. I imagine for some of those drivers that undercut, we should be closing in on some green flag pit stops.
Yeah, I would agree with that assumption. We were at our lap 130. Those guys started down pit road about lap 65 or so. There you go. And got Michael Goodman's one of those that's already been down pit road. And we are back on our end. I could potentially do the sponsor reads. I have to pull them up real quick. Once we get them, we'll send those.
Do you not? Okay.
They haven't been added. My Discord's not. Oh, there we go. Yep. I'll do the sponsor reads real quick. So our series sponsor is Belly Up Sports, the internet sports bar, sports commentary via podcasts, forums, articles on topics ranging into nearly every sport. It's not your usual sports site. Check them out on X or at bellyupsports.com. Our premier sponsors are Blue Egg Marketing. Rev up your business with Blue Egg, your marketing pit crew. Turbocharge your lead generation with experienced drivers that can navigate the competitive track to connecting with your customers. With Blue Egg, you're always in pole position, leading your brand toward victory lane. Don't spin your wheels. Accelerate success with Blue Egg, fueling small businesses to win big. An alternate premier sponsor is Worldwide Technology Raceway. Worldwide Technology Raceway, otherwise known as Gateway, is a motorsport and racing facility in Madison, Illinois, just east of St. Louis, Missouri. It features a 1.25-mile oval that hosts the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and the NTT IndyCar Series. They have a 2-mile infield road course used by Speed Tour, Trans Am, SDCA, and the Porsche Club of America. There's a quarter-mile NHRA-sanctioned drag strip that hosts the annual NHRA Camping World Drag Series Midwest Nationals event. And finally, they have the Kartplex, a state-of-the-art karting facility. Our other premier sponsor is 4D Racewear, the makers of ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 4D sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can, and still provide all the comfort needed for those double and triple stints. These guys are going to need them tonight. Visit 4dracewear.com and check out the original racing gloves for your feet. Our race sponsor is Decor Depot, purveyors of fine vintage goods on SE since 2019, based in the foothills of Pocono Mountains. Go find Decor Depot tonight. And that is our sponsors. And Dave, we don't have right now for ads, and I can't even pull up Dave's broadcast right now, so things are going well. Oh, I got it back finally.
Well, out front, Jonathan Cutlip still leading the way as we close in. He'll start lap 135 right here. Yep. In that number 5 car.
This was right when Matthew Weeks' car started to take off in the last run, and Weeks has bypassed Ryan Gable and driven up into 6th. The other car that I'm noticing that's starting to really make some inroads is Scott Crump. He's cut that lead down to 8.2 seconds. And 90 cars starting to come alive here on the long green flag run.
And just behind Crump, you see a complete hornet's nest from about Tyler Fody on back. Some of the rest of these guys just outside the top 5 trying to work through some of that lap traffic. That has allowed Scott Crump to get away from them. As you see, he is reeling in Dustin Dewar in the Kyle Petty throwback.
Also, housekeeping note, as we should definitely watch on Tyler Fody, but also on Matthew Weeks and David Hooker. They will be battling for the 5th position momentarily. Is that Josh Personette has disconnected from the race, unfortunately, as in the 2002 Daytona 500, a disappointing end for the Dave Marcus car.
There you see Dustin Dewar giving way to Scott Crump.
And yeah, back here, Ty McIntosh and Nick Massey are kind of in the worst spot possible against David Hooker and Matthew Weeks. They do clear that through, but now Ryan Gable and Trey Holmes will be stuck in the hornet's nest. We're working on our technical issues here. We'll try to make sure you guys are updated, but Gable and Holmes are bypassing Jesse Racimus. Contact with the wall for Nick Massey. This group is really fighting hard against these race leaders.
Yeah, this is quite just a gnarly little situation here, and now Ryan has to back out of it. That's going to open the door for Trey Holmes.
Gable fights back, and Indelicato and Hibbs are on fresh tires behind. Here comes Indelicato looking to the bottom. He'll think better of that. Oh, no, he won't.
Where is Indelicato pitting, or did he just... Oh! Now there's contact. That's Trey Holmes and Gavin Hibbs adoring each other through 3 and 4.
Seth Rawls also has fresh tires. The shift cars have already pitted here in this group, so that's what's causing this stack up. You've got fast cars on tires, slower lead lap cars, and then even slower lapped cars on old tires.
There we go. Looking at... That's Seth Rawls. Right as Trey Holmes makes a move on Ryan Gable. And now here comes Nick Indelicato. He's got...
I would be...
3 wide here. He might take it 3 wide here.
I would be shocked if this wasn't our first caution of the day. Wadsworth is right here, too. That's the Jeff Gordon car hanging out with the Rusty Wallace car. You've never seen that before. Delicato does find his way around Holmes. He's going to try to get around Gable. Gable's going to get spun in the back. Oh, they missed him. And no caution is waived. Ryan Gable is going to lose a ton of time. He winds up stopped on the racetrack. That car, I'm sure, fired into neutral, and he could not get that thing refired immediately. The caution does waive. And 15 cars will be on the lead lap after a 140-lap green flag run to open this event. Wow.
So that long green flag run comes to an end. I mean, you called it, David. That wad of cars was just, there was too much going on, too much speed disparity between old tires, new tires, competitive cars, lap down cars, and ultimately Ryan Gable goes around as part of all of that on the backstretch. Justin Wadsworth, I don't know how he missed it.
Yep, great move by Justin Wadsworth. We're probably going to need to get an onboard shot from Wadsworth's car. That started so much earlier that even if we back up, I just don't know that we can capture where that exactly started. I mean, it was multiple laps before this. As I think Trey got into... Gable had to check for Racimus right there. Racimus backed into Gable. Gable backs into Holmes. Holmes out of the gas, obviously, but it's just too late. And then Wadsworth able to get on the brakes and get out of the way of that 0-1 car. Nobody hits it, and Gable will be able to stay on the lead lap. Going to try to downshift to get things going, but ultimately that'll end up causing further disparity. As there's the check for Racimus. Gable checks, and there's a car to his inside. He can't even turn down. And then ultimately racing deal for Ryan Gable into first gear as to try and get that thing fired up without spinning it in front of the field further. And ultimately we'll lose a bunch of track position. Off pit road, Jonathan Cutlip will lead Ethan Stanley and Scott Crump as they exit pit road the order they came down.
There you see from the pit exit cam the sun starting to set here at the virtual Darlington Raceway.
We run some ads once more.
Flames will burn and sparks will fly at the NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Kickoff race weekend in style with 2 qualifying sessions in one day, plus the can't-miss show of Nitro Under the Lights on Friday, September 27th. Get tickets at WWTRaceway.com with kids 12 and under free and general admission. The NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Darlington Raceway for the Decor Depot Southern 500. And thank you once again to all of our sponsors as we work towards Stage 2. We are at lap 145 after a 140-lap green flag run before a spin by Ryan Gable put us under caution for the first time. Jonathan Cutlip will get the restart, and he will lead us once again into Turn 1 for the first restart of the race.
Jonathan Cutlip jumps out front. Ethan Stanley's going to slot into second. Behind that, side by side, Scott Crump, Tyler Fode. Crump has the advantage at the moment, but can he get in front of Fode? Yes. So Scott Crump will hold on to the third position. Now Fode under fire from David Tooker.
Ray Holmes and Tooker working to that inside lane. Fode up top, fighting against those the Pro Edge Toyota. Hunter Smith sideways on the bottom in the back. He drops back into the clutches of Matthew Weeks and Ethan Burrell. I think Weeks probably took the time to clear the damage on the right rear of that machine. He lost a couple of spots on pit road. Back to 10th is Matthew Weeks, but he'll be all right.
Here we look at a side-by-side battle. That's Ethan Burrell working around Hunter Smith and Ryan Gable. Car involved in that last incident, but he is got plenty of speed on that high side at the moment.
Oh! Did he make contact with Hunter Smith? He might have. He got out of the gas big time. That opened the door for Jeff Green. Jeff unable to step through. Weeks going after Wadsworth up there for 8th. Oh, Gable sideways. Oh, Carlos Acosta reactive, and they're going to crash on the back straightaway. That has to be a caution, Robert. Are we? Oh, boy.
Nope, no caution.
No caution. Jordan Owens involved. Carlos Acosta involved. Zach Rogers now off track. That was not of this making, but there's the incident. Acosta into Rogers, around, backwards. Contact with one of the Richard Petty throwbacks. but ultimately the Darlington method of throwing the caution flags unreliable, and the caution does not wave.
We continue on under the green flag here at Darlington. Watching a Leighton Norgard following Ethan Burrell. Burrell running 10th, Norgard 11th, Hunter Smith 12th in the 54 car, and now they're trying to get around Justin Wadsworth in that number 6 machine.
Yep, Wadsworth trapped on the outside lane right there. He yields the spot to Burrell. Now he'll fight Norgard in turn 3 and 4. Wadsworth's been pretty commonly in the top 10 in this race. Let's see if he can gather up some speed and hold these guys back, but not yet. They're going to be side by side entering turn 1. Norgard, I think, thinks better of it and holds on to that 11th spot right in front of Hunter Smith.
Justin Wadsworth holding on to that 10th spot. Leighton Norgard 11th, Hunter Smith 12th. Behind that, you see Jeff Green in the 13th position.
One of the lead lap cars was Jordan Owens. He's back in 15th. He got involved in that incident. Looks like the damage on that car not too terrible. They will give the tally to Carlos Acosta, the 0-2. But Owens definitely losing time in that 16 car as Hunter Smith dives to the inside of a Leighton Norgard. He'll go for 11th and will not clear the 12 car.
I'm not sure amidst our technical difficulties if we caught the ruling on the first caution.
Nope, it was a racing deal, I believe.
There you go. There's the official confirmation of race control. Carlos Acosta receiving the tally for the incident on the backstretch following the restart.
And that's unfortunate news for Ray Bracey. The one car that did take the wave around to try and gain a lap back, he will wind up not getting that lap back in pits, as I mentioned that, to get fresh tires on the number 7 car. That's Jeff Bodine throwback, a good one. And it is the debut of South Shore Racing in the Elite Cup Series.
That car in the real world won at Watkins Glen during the 1996 season, which I guess in a way is kind of fitting for Bojo. His one elite win came at a road course also.
Yep. And he'll come back on track with some fresh tires and try to make up one of those laps under green, will Ray Bracey. So an unfortunate result that one incident did not provide the caution he was looking for, and he'll go, I believe, 2 laps down here. He'll have the speed, I think, to get up there and get one of those back. But it's a long race. He'll stick with it.
Up front, of course, Jonathan Cutlip lead over a second already since that restart.
Stanley and Crump kind of holding together about a half second ahead of Tyler Fody and David Tooker. Chad Frankenfield hanging on the back bumper of David Tooker, and he's up in 6th. That's about the highest we've seen Chad Frankenfield all race long.
Here a little further back, we see this is Justin Wadsworth in 10th. We've talked about this battle quite a bit, but Hunter Smith clearly has a fair bit of pace. He's able to stay right with Justin Wadsworth, but is either content to ride there or just hasn't been able to get that run he needs to complete the pass.
He keeps looking, does Hunter Smith. Don't think it's a matter of desire, but I do think it's a matter of that Justin Wadsworth car is working effectively to defend that position. And you can see if these guys are all stacked up behind Trey Holmes, that tells me in 10 or 15 laps, that 88 car will drive away from this group, and this group's going to start to struggle with the tires. Big run for Wadsworth up top. He might be able to get on the outside of Ethan Burrell. No.
Not quite. But he needed that run because Hunter Smith had pulled to the inside of him. So that allows Wadsworth to hang on to the 10th position. And even open up a little bit of a gap at least down the front stretch, but Smith made up a ton of ground through 1 and 2.
Yeah, Hunter's got turn 2 really, really good right now. You can see how he's working up to the top of the track and then turning down a little bit more than those cars in front, but that does result in what you saw right there, a little bit of wall scrape, a little bit tight condition on corner exit. He's just using too much tire to make those moves, and up front of this group, Matthew Weeks has bypassed Trey Holmes. Trey working to save the tires, but right now it's coming at the expense of some of that track position.
Ethan Burrell setting up the move. Justin Wadsworth sees his opportunity. He's got to try to bring his car to the inside. Not quite able to stick his foot in the door, but Ethan Burrell is able to take the 8th position from Trey Holmes.
Yeah, Burrell, guy, I'm a little shocked with the results so far. I think he's had some struggles early in this race, but no throwback obviously on this 37 car, but it is just, he's not had that pace that we have been accustomed to seeing from Ethan Burrell to this point. Recall, he should have won at Pocono last week. He was the fastest of the 3 Pro Edge cars that dominated that race, and ultimately connection issues took him out of contention for that one. At Texas, he led early. He was very strong until one of the cautions put him back in the field, and then a second caution wiped him out. So Burrell has 3 poles on the year, started second in this race. He could have had 3 wins, and only one of them went his way. That was the Daytona 500.
You ready for a dumb Ethan Burrell stat?
There are many.
So, looking at the stats for the Southern 500, right now he is running in the 8th position. Obviously, we're a long way from the end. I hate the points as they run thing or whatever. But if he finished in 8th in this race, it would be his worst finish ever in the Southern 500.
And this is a guy who, you listen to him talk this week, said, I'm just hoping to run pretty good. He says he doesn't like Darlington, right? Guy in front of him, Matthew Weeks, loves Darlington. Favorite track, really wants to run well here. Really wants to run up and get the win. Burrell's like, man, I just want to finish the race. And Burrell has the highest average finish of all the drivers. Never finished, worse than 7th?
Never worse than 7th. Average finish of 5.5 in this race. 3rd, 7th, 7th, 5th in 4 starts in this race. So, yeah, he doesn't have the win. As we mentioned, Tyler Fode, the only driver in tonight's race who has won this event, but Ethan Burrell no slouch here at Darlington.
Ethan Burrell no slouch in general, and Jonathan Cutlip, I caught a blink, really hoping that 5 car is not going to encounter the internet gremlins tonight, because as dominant as we've seen Ethan Burrell over this season in the Pro Edge group, Jonathan Cutlip has had the fastest car tonight from the pole. He's led the most laps so far. He did not win stage 1, but that Home Depot Tony Stewart looking throwback has been very strong to this point. I just hope he'll finish the race. He hasn't been able to finish one yet this season on account of the strange iRacing blinking issue.
And certainly the way he's run tonight, that would be heartbreaking if that were to befall him again. As we look at Justin Wadsworth trying to get a run down the backstretch here and work on Trey Holmes for that 9th position.
Yeah. So we'll note the battle for that lead is starting to tighten up. Stanley has reeled back Jonathan Cutlip ever so slightly. He's down to 0.4 of a second. It was up around a second earlier a few laps ago, but part of that might be that Cutlip is starting to catch Carlos Acosta in that 0-2 Ryan Newman throwback car. If you watch the 2001 season back, which Ryan Newman was running that car, Ryan Newman won the pole at the Coke 600 and wrecked on lap 1. And yeah, Cutlip is showing out of Dave's.
Nope, he's back. He's back.
He's there. Acosta gets on the apron. He was there for me the whole time, but he wasn't there on Dave's screen. Anyway, yeah, Ryan Newman in that 0-2 qualified on pole in the Coke 600, wrecked it on lap 10. Carlos having a better run than that in the 0-2 car, but not a great run, as he did get pinged for the contact on the back straightaway, and he's 2 laps down in 27th.
And quietly, ever so quietly, while Ethan Stanley is closing in on Jonathan Cutlip, Scott Crump has been closing in on both of them just a little bit as well.
Yep, Crump's starting to ease his way into this race, and that's a guy I really like on the long green flag runs, is Scott Crump. If he can get the rhythm down, he can save the tires. Scott Crump will be there at the end of the green flag runs. He was very quick at the end of our last green flag run, right before that first caution hit.
Here he'll make his way around Carlos Acosta in that 0-2 car. Did cost him a little bit of time, but overall was a pretty painless pass around Acosta.
Yep, he'll take that. In back, Chad Frankenfield has worked his way to the back bumper of David Tooker. We've also seen a couple of guys jump out of this event and effectively retire. Chris Wright, one of those, he missed the start, wound up going a couple of laps down early, was not able to recover and has pulled it off the racetrack. Josh Robin has retired the 8 car effectively. He's now 20 laps down. Mark Robilas is 21 down, still running, but with damage. We just saw him pop up on the screen, and Zach Rogers is now 39th and retired from the event.
There you see Rebelos on track, 21 laps down in the 96 car, but got to try to pick up those valuable points as drivers do fall out of the race.
Yeah, Rubilas has definitely tagged the wall a few times in this one. And we have seen 29 stripes in 173 laps, and those are just the ones we caught on the broadcast, not even the ones that we otherwise would not have noted. And there were definitely more wall contacts than just that. I want to bring us back to the battle for the lead here if we can, because Michael Goodman just held up Jonathan Cutlip, and Ethan Stanley's going to go for the race lead.
Ethan Stanley to the inside of Jonathan Cutlip, going into turn 1, but couldn't quite make it stick. That's going to allow Cutlip to hang on to that top spot as Ethan Stanley has to duck back in line. And there you see Goodman catch a piece of the wall out of turn 2.
That'll make it number 30. And Stanley unable to go and grab that race lead from Jonathan Cutlip. We are still a pit stop away from the second stage end. That'll be lap 230, the conclusion of that. So I think these guys are going to have to pit again before that point. That's 90 laps, I think, from our last restart. So yeah, these guys will have to pit before that stage, and some of these guys might want to think about slightly short pitting to make sure they grab some stage points. I think there could be some benefit in going that route. If you're hunting for the points, that is.
If you're hunting for the point, sure. We've seen, certainly you can get some track position that way. It's definitely, you're going to have to do something different to get in front of these top 2 or 3 cars for sure. They're opening up a pretty sizable gap on every long run we have. As there we see Cutlip briefly disappear from the view of Ethan Stanley, but he's back with us now.
Every time that 5 car blips, it definitely scares me, because that is a very fast hot rod that does not need to encounter the same gremlins it has run into the early part of this season. He needs a win too. That's the benefit of a win and you're in type of system, is that Jonathan Cutlip can have those bad results. As Leighton Norgard and Hunter Smith made contact on the back straightaway, very nearly had a caution flag there. I managed to pull that up on my screen, and you'll note Norgard behind Smith and Jeff Green. That's because of the contact they made, and Ty McIntosh tagged the wall. That's another count in that Darlington stripe counter just behind this group. Woo!
Hunter Smith, well, now Leighton Norgard's got to go right back on the attack. He's got to try to get around Jeff Green here. It looks like he was able to complete that pass going into turn 3.
Norgard driving with a little bit of vengeance there, because he and Smith did make that contact already, and they're side by side behind him with Nick Massey and McIntosh, and they end up sorting that out. And then we roll back up to the front of the field where the battle for the lead continues to rage on. Jonathan Cutlip and Ethan Stanley have not resolved this dispute for the lead. It remains the 5 car just in front of Ethan Stanley's 91.
Ethan Stanley a little bit higher entrance that time into 1 and 2. Of course, they both end up at the same point at that stage of the corner, right up against the fence. Then you straight line that turn 2 as much as you can to get the run down to backstretch. Into turn 3, Cutlip a little bit higher on entrance there. Really all the way through the corner.
Yep, much higher lane there for Jonathan Cutlip. Typically, if you do run that outside lane, you will manage your speed better and you'll be a faster car, but you will sacrifice a little bit of tire wear. And Stanley just barely touched the wall. I don't even call that a stripe. He kissed it. And it's enough to keep that 91 car just in the tire tracks of Jonathan Cutlip, but just not enough to make a run at the race lead.
Right now, that was enough to add a couple hundredths to the advantage for Jonathan Cutlip, but already Ethan Stanley cutting back into that gap. I mean, this battle for the lead, this is what you think of whenever you go to Darlington. These intense battles. It's really hard when you've got 2 cars that are this good for one of them to make a pass on the other. If Ethan Stanley were in front, Jonathan Cutlip would be in the same situation. It's just so hard to set up a clean pass on such a demanding track.
Yep. And on top of that, right, these guys are not in a car that it's difficult to make a mistake, right? It has to be a mistake on your end. The car, it's kind of easy to drive as Gable bounces off of Ty McIntosh and almost goes into the inside wall. He'll come back up in front right next to Abbott and Ray Bracey. Bracey backs out of it. He's 2 laps down. Good decision on the 7 car. And I want to say that's Christopher right behind him. Got to get these. Yeah, it is Christopher right behind Ray Bracey. Got to get those Richard Petty throwbacks lined up. Ryan Gable having a whale of a time working through this lap traffic.
This is setting up to be another messy situation in this line of cars. Ray Bracey, of course, is going to have fresher tires than pretty much everyone in this group. We saw his pit stop 10 or 15 laps into that run, but he also understands the situation he's in. He's a couple of laps down. He doesn't want to interfere with these battles and make his night any more difficult than it already is.
He's doing a good job. I think he had a mistake on one of the pit stops, and it got him one of the extra laps down there. But, you know, ultimately, I don't think the fresh tires, he's not trying to take advantage of those right now. As we see Nick and Delicato coming off pit road, I think the short pitters have started to hit pit road as Ty McIntosh bounces off the fence right in front of this battle with Ryan Gable. Did Nick he did. Nick just disconnected. And Delicato is up there in the points as well. Gable just got a bust shot from Bracey. That battle is still raging on. Bracey, Gable, those guys are all battling. They've all wadded up behind Ty McIntosh. Ty's hit the wall a couple times. I think that car is not handling as well as Gavin Hibbs. Knocks the wall down off turn 2. And Ryan Gable does finally clear into some open track. Of course, the car that has 10 lap fresher tires than everybody else and Ray Bracey, right on his back bumper, applying pressure, not letting Ryan Gable have any peace.
Yeah, definitely a stressful situation for Ryan Gable. He's already had his one incident.
There's another one. Whew.
Here comes Bracey. He's got to try to get around now while he has the chance. He will get around Ryan Gable. Again, not for position.
Yep. Bracey 2 laps down, did try to get the wave around. Had the incident, did not draw the caution. And that has now dropped Ray Bracey to 2 laps down. In front of him, Corey Abbott. We do have a battle for the lead on the back straightaway. And into turn 3.
Side.
These two have run really clean all race long. Battled really hard. They've really been the top 2 in this race. Jonathan Cutlip holds serve once again against Ethan Stanley. You know, he's starting to reel in these guys a little bit. is that fourth place car.
Oh, look what's in front of these guys.
There is some lap traffic approaching.
Rebelus into 96, Josh Clark just ahead of these two guys battling for the lead. Rebelus has got to pull off to the left-hand side, it looks like, and get out of the way.
Clark the next up. He is the last car 1 lap down in 24th. Michael Husak off pit road. That car 4 laps down. You'll see it blend in right behind these race leaders. Into the wall just went Richie Hearn.
Oh, that's...
Oh! Contact between Cutlip and Clark, and Stanley cannot take advantage. He just has to ride in tire tracks of Jonathan Cutlip and work his way by the 28. We see another stripe on the board, but Jonathan Cutlip almost. Oh, Cutlip got the wall.
You know, an interesting thing I heard on the driver's chat there, sometimes we struggle with this throwback night getting these cars right because everybody has a different look. You see the battle for the lead picking up again. Ethan Stanley to the inside of Jonathan Cutlip. Josh Clark apologized to Jonathan Cutlip. He said, "I thought you were Mark." The two orange cars got confused instead of giving a little more room to the leader. He thought he was racing a guy for position.
Yeah, and that's... Oh, boy, tight into turn 1. That is something you'll run into in big-time pixel car racing, is difficulty of knowing exactly who's who out there, especially because these guys like to change sponsors every week, and here we are running a throwback race, which encourages everybody to run a different scheme, as Michael Hosak's going to blow by these race leaders on the fresher tires. He'll do so in a spot that doesn't lose either of them much time, but you'll note the times back to 3rd and 4th are coming down for Scott Crump and Tyler Fody. They are now 2 seconds behind the race leaders. David Tooker 2.5 back. And the guy I'm looking at is Tyler Fody. That might be the car that's starting to heat up here as the night has worn on. Fody did not, I don't think, show his full hand yet tonight. That car, the Pete Hamilton throwback for the 1970 Daytona 500, that thing's starting to come alive under the lights.
Indeed, you're going to see some different drivers find some speed under the lights here at Darlington. Looks like Tyler Fody may be one of them. Right now, he's closed in on that 90 car of Scott Crump. Battle for 3rd starting to heat up.
Yep, Fody, and then David Tooker's right behind them in that Vans number 19 car. Here comes Tyler Fody, the inside of teammate Scott Crump. Looks like Crump's going to yield way to the Tyler Fody machine, which did catch him from about 1.5 seconds back. So Crump acknowledges the faster car, drops on behind. They don't lose any time to the race leader. Still about 2 seconds behind Jonathan Cutlip and subsequently Ethan Stanley.
Now Tyler Fody and that JD Designs number 40 will make his way around Josh Clark. Scott Crump will do the same. Not sure if Tooker was able to get in there before turn 3. I think he's got to wait a little bit longer, and that will cost him a little bit of time to these two guys in front of him.
Yep, Tooker, and that's a teammate for David Tooker as well, so not exactly what he was looking for, I don't think, from the Pro Edge car.
Right, but I mean that is the nature of Darlington. There's only now you talked about it a little bit earlier. When you're one of these cars that has damage, especially on older tires, slow a couple of laps down, you're doing your best to keep the car on the racing line when you're on your own. It is a handful when you're trying to let guys by who are faster and are battling on the lead lap. You don't want to be a problem, but you really can't help it.
Right. There's just nowhere to go, right, for guys like that. And up front, we'll stick on this battle for a little bit as Ethan Stanley starts to get to the back bumper of Jonathan Cutlip on corner exit. That's an interesting spot for you to make the attack. Stanley will now drive it into turn 1. No, he thinks better of it and drops in behind Cutlip. Yeah, there's just nowhere to go at this racetrack, right, Zach? Like you said, these guys can get out of the way, but it costs you so much time.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. And I've certainly been on both sides of the coin here. It's miserable when you're having a slow run at Darlington because it feels like you're constantly getting passed by guys and constantly in the way and constantly worried about getting into one of these leaders, especially in the Southern 500. You don't want to ruin their night. But right now, fortunately for these two guys up front, they've got clean track. And Ethan Stanley still trying to find a way, but I'm just going to say it. Tyler Fody is closing on these guys.
yeah.
We're going to see him get bigger and bigger as we focus on this battle for the lead.
Yeah, Tyler Fody is going to arrive at this battle for the lead in short order. I think Scott Crump's even making enough inroads to eventually arrive at this battle. These two might have burned their stuff off in this long green flag run. We saw how well they went through the green flag pit cycle. We're coming up on that green flag pit cycle to kind of set up the ending portion of this race. This will be the green flag pit stop that determines the stage winner at lap 230. Whoever gets off pit road first is going to feel really good, and I think even if you pit first, you're going to feel really good about your chances to win that stage if you're in the top 5 right now.
Oh, definitely. This is you're starting. Obviously, the stage is important, but you're starting to see the other side of the race, right? You've got to start picturing when you're going to make your pit stops, put yourself in the best position for lap 367, because we've already seen with that long green flag run to start the race that who knows? We might go the rest of the way on this.
Right. Very possible. And you've got to have your good pit stops on such a difficult pit road to get onto that we've already kind of covered very thoroughly on the last set of green flag pit stops. We've seen guys already make their pit stops as well. So the question now is, when do these leaders start to come down pit road? As Stanley might have gotten into the wall just a little bit there. Gave up a little bit of time. Maybe the presence of that 40 car on his back bumper starting to tighten up that 91 car in the middle of the corner.
Fody has almost cut it down to a half second behind Jonathan Cutlip. He is within a half second of Ethan Stanley. Both of these lead guys are going to have something to think about here, and it looks like they might be closing in on some more traffic as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a 3-car battle for the lead in the next 2-3 laps, maybe. Tyler Fody has turned it on here in the middle stages of this race. He's hunting a stage win. Fody does not yet have a race win this season in the Cup Series. Teammate Ethan Stanley right in front of him does have a race win at Texas, and then the other winners are Ethan Burrell in 9th, Tate Lytle in 43rd. As Stanley might have gotten the wall, Fody to the inside, Ryan Gable, their teammate, on pit road.
Ryan Gable to pit road, Tyler Fody to the second position. If he can get in front of Ethan Stanley here out of turn 4, he will. And now he's got to try to take the lead here in the Southern 500.
Took 205 laps for Tyler Fody, the only driver in this field to have won this race before, to get up to that second position. Here he is, challenging for the race lead. Car on the wall right in front of him. I think that was Michael Goodman. No, it was Richie Hearn. Bounces off the wall in front of them. It gives Tyler Fody a shot to jump to the inside of Jonathan Cutlip, and Tyler Fody will get the race lead over Cutlip.
New leader, lap 205. Tyler Fody in the 40 car. Now we'll see what he can do up front. Of course, first they're going to have to get around one more of these back markers. That is Kyle Hanshaw, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and let's throw up Kyle Hanshaw's paint scheme here while we've got him on track. I don't think we've been able to talk about the, what did you call this, the Hendrick test car?
The Hendrick test car from 1983, as they were back when it would have been the All-Star Racing team before they went full-time with Jeff Bodine.
Yep, and definitely an obscure paint scheme. I'm glad we got the photo for you guys. And Hanshaw going a lap down. Hasn't had the night I think he would have wanted. Got a little right front damage, you can tell, on this 41 car. A few laps down, but Richie Hearn, go ahead and slap another one on the stripe counter for that 73 car. Kyle Hanshaw with a cool paint scheme. I love the silver numbers. And we'll have to touch on Seth Rawls' scheme as well. It's another one that has a very good... this might be a caution here. That has another good story to it.
Well, Seth Rawls is just 2 cars ahead here. There we go. We can talk about that real quick. So one of Seth Rawls' sponsors this season, we talk about a lot of sponsors here in Elite. One of them is Tailored Digital Solutions. Tailored spelled Taylord. Get it? Taylor, because the name Taylor. So Taylor is in the picture you see right there. Not only is she Seth's boss over at Tailored Digital Solutions, but she also raced some herself up in the Northeast. This picture with her sport truck at the Seekonk Speedway when she used to race. So Seth throwing back to the boss, which is just a cool tie-in to the sponsor and some good old short track racing. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, we got a lot of those connections, right? We talk about the kind of family nature of Elite and just the ability for Seth to make that connection with somebody who runs, you know, short tracks up in the Northern Series. And hey, you know, it's a good thing to be able to put some honor on her name and run her paint scheme. And Seth, again, not having the best of nights, but we're giving him some TV time here in the mid 200s of this Southern 500. And Seth's keeping pace with Scott Crump. I mean, he's got a little bit fresher tires, but you got to feel good about that when you're running on pace with the leaders, even though you might be a lap or two down.
And look, all it takes is a couple of late cautions, and you can really turn your fortunes around in this race. So you might as well stick with it and see what happens.
A lot of guys are going to do that. A lot of guys have done that. Saw Nick Massey, I think, have a bit of a moment there coming out of turn 4. Yeah, got loose on the front straightaway, wound up giving up all 4 of those positions to Racimus, Stouffer, Dewar, and Abbott. And there, well, I was going to say we had the last car on the lead lap, Jordan Owens. That car has been damaged as Jordan Owens, and it is about to go a lap down to race leader Tyler Fode. We watch the Jesse Racimus battle with Chris Stouffer, Dusty Dewar, and Corey Abbott just in front of Nick Massey, who had that moment a few laps ago. I don't think we've covered Dusty Dewar's paint scheme. That's the what, 1992 Kyle Petty paint scheme?
Early 90s. I'm not sure if there was a specific year given, but definitely that iconic mellow yellow scheme from the early 90s when Kyle Petty drove for Felix Sabates.
Yep, definitely a good paint scheme, and I love the way that Pontiac nose looks on that car. Obviously, can't recreate the nose. Corey Abbott adds to the stripe counter. Love the way that car looks, and it ran really well back in the day, back when Kyle Petty was kind of a race winner, winning races. I grew up with Kyle Petty being a bit of a back marker as Dusty Dewar makes the pass on his teammate Jesse Racimus, right in front of Michael Hosak, who is on tires. And a housekeeping note, Ethan Stanley has come down pit road and taken fresh tires. He will kick off this set of green flag pit stops, and I would say this probably opens it up to Ethan Stanley winning the stage.
It's certainly the move he had to make if he wants to win the stage. And there you see Justin Wadsworth, Trey Holmes also making their way down pit road. So a couple more of these guys have been near the front of the field, running in the top 10 all night, making their way down pit road. But yes, to your point, Ethan Stanley, if he's going to win the stage, he needed to undercut those guys in front of him. He has done so. We'll see if that is able to get him in front on this pit cycle.
Yeah, I that's the way Stanley had to do it. I'm interested. Here comes David Tooker down pit road this time. So David Tooker, Chad Frankenfield hit pit road, and as guys continue to pit from behind race leader Tyler Fode, Jonathan Cutlip, and Scott Crump, the question becomes, when do they make their way down pit road? So here comes Jeff Green in the number 2.
And this is where you kind of have to weigh it out in your mind, right? How much, there we see Jonathan Cutlip. He has decided now is the time to come to pit road. But obviously the stage is important, but you also got to think big picture. You know, if you're Tyler Fode, you've got the car on the long run right now. Do you want to necessarily chase that stage that badly, or do you want to stick to the game plan and give yourself the best possible chance to have that long run speed again on this next green flag run? Are you okay with maybe finishing 6th or 7th in the stage if it puts you in a better position come lap 285, 290?
I know Tyler Fode is okay with that, because Tyler Fode's sole goal is winning this race. That's what he's focused on right now. The stage is secondary, right? Fode's gonna have to pit before the stage hits, but he will maybe right now he's low on the track. Yep, here comes Tyler
He
Fody.
has made the move to the apron. You see him working his way towards pit road. We'll go to the pit entrance camera. Man, that's picture perfect.
Yep.
From Tyler Fody. You saw how much speed he carried all the way up to the yellow coat, and then he got slowed down. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't out of shape. He wasn't out of control. You didn't see any tire lockup. Not that it would be a huge deal. Obviously, he's about to get 4 fresh tires, but anytime you lock up the tires, you risk losing control. That's about as good as it gets.
That's why he's a past champion of the series, and I think 7 total Elite Series championships for Tyler Fody across all of the various series as Matthew Weeks relinquishes the lead to head down pit road. That will turn it over to Ethan Stanley, and you can see on our ticker there, Stanley is ahead of Jonathan Cutlip, and Ryan Gable is between them after pitting much earlier than the rest of these guys. So Ethan Stanley, the de facto race leader, and with 10 laps to go in the stage, I'd put my money on Ethan Stanley to win the stage.
He's certainly in the position, as you see Matthew Weeks making his way down pit road. He'll be the leader until the rest of these cars make their way around Matthew Weeks in that Jeff Burton throwback. There we see Ethan Stanley. Isn't going to lead that lap because Matthew Weeks' pit stall was past the start-finish line on pit road, but he will almost certainly...
Carlos spun out on the bottom.
That should be out of the way enough to avoid a caution, but it could be an issue for Matthew Weeks leaving. No, okay, he's been able to get back going. So that isn't going to be an issue. But
Weeks is just behind.
Yeah.
Weeks just blended up the track. You saw him right there, right in front of the purple car. That'll be a Leighton Norgard that Weeks blended up in front of.
So fortunately, that could have been much worse. Certainly an unfortunate moment for Carlos Acosta, but back up front, Ethan Stanley in a good position to win this stage. He's got a 0.7 of a second advantage on Ryan Gable. That's likely only going to grow since he's going to have fresher tires than Ryan. Tyler Fody has a lot of ground to make up. Again, long term, he's okay with that. He's in the position he needs to be in beyond the stage. But for right now, it looks like Ethan Stanley's stage to lose.
Yeah, it does. And Ethan Stanley making the right moves, right, thus far in this race, right? I think he burned the tires up a little bit more right in front of Jonathan Cutlip to win the last stage, made that effort to go out of his way and win the stage. And then we look ahead, as we look back at, it looks like Andrew Rucker. See what kind of incident we have. I think Rucker's going to try to get on pit road here. And go a little fast. Into the barrels goes Andrew Rucker.
Well,
that was off the lead lap, too. He was having a pretty good race, and now he is 17 laps down. That would have been a while ago.
He didn't hear the barrel say it was coming in.
But that's what we've been talking about, right? How difficult this pit entry is under green, and certainly that's the worst case scenario. That's what can happen here.
Yeah, it can. And so I want to, before we saw as Scott Crump goes after Trey Holmes, a little bit of contact. And they're in front of a bunch of lap cars. Ray Bracey is still out there because he had pitted early, remember? So Bracey is kind of holding these guys up a little bit, not out of any wrongdoing per se. He's going to just be the last one to pit on this cycle. But in so doing, it causes near stack up that Scott Crump and Trey Holmes are able to get out of.
But from Bracey's perspective, right now, he's the first car a lap down. If he gets a caution right now, he's golden. He's in the free pass spot. He has to stick with this. He's already on the alternate strategy. He's got to stick with it, but those are the moments that can happen when you're on 70-lap-old tires compared to everybody else.
Right. And Jordan Owens is that first car behind, so my strategy to Bracey would be hold off till Jordan gets by you, and then maybe in a lap or two, come down pit road, go ahead and sacrifice back. But it would have to be a fortunately timed caution, and unfortunately not go in the way of Bojo.
Yeah, certainly not too many cautions for anybody to capitalize on so far this evening, which I think we'd agree is better than the alternative, but certainly it made it tough for some of these guys that have run into early issues.
Right, and as we approach the stage, we can think back, and we've run into it, right? In this race, we've had races like this that went 15, 20 cautions. I think you and I were a part of the first race in the next gen car in the Southern 500 that, if I recall, had 20 cautions. I had the lucky dog 10 or so times, and I was 20 laps down or something, and I ended up with 10 laps down. Like, it was a miserable night.
I finished sixth that night, which tells you how bad it was. I think there were 7 cars on the lead lap. It was definitely one of the Southern 500s of all time. Lots of calamity, lots of incidents. Mostly on corner exit that night. There were definitely some issues with the car wanting to stay under control and stay planted on corner exit, trying to pull up those results now.
There goes Bracy down pit road. So that will complete the green flag pit cycle. And as we come to the Ray, no.
Oh.
Ah.
Well,
and old tires. That'll do it.
That will do it. That's got to be a pretty big setback. Oh, it caught it right on the right front too. So I would imagine he's got a meatball. Indeed, he does.
Tough break for Ray. He's having a good run, but despite the couple of laps down issue there, but we'll check back in. I'm sure he'll pick up some points later on. Tough break for Ray's Elite
He
Cup
saw the
Series
right
debut.
front turn completely to the right. That's what went wrong there.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not going to be readily fixable for
No,
Ray Bracy.
That's got to take a little bit of time. But up front, well, not up front. This is Ethan Burrell here.
This is coming to the stage win. Ethan Stanley has won stage 2. Ryan Gable takes second. Tyler Fody third. Jonathan Cutlip fourth. David Tooker fifth. Crump sixth. Wadsworth 7th, Holmes 8th, Frankenfield 9th, Weeks 10th, and that was the battle for 10th right there. This group, I think, close, no time.
Well, Ray Bracy has disconnected from the server, so apparently whatever number he saw in the repair category was too much for him to stomach in his Cup Series debut here.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a hefty one, and obviously Ray not running for points or anything. He was out here just trying to pick up a little experience, have some fun. And as we watched Tyler Fody, Tyler drifted it up the track that time. I was a little concerned for the well-being of the 40 car, but he kept it in line. They're coming up quickly on Ryan Gable. Gable made it to the stage, but is now, I believe, going to pay the price for such a short pit stop. Oh, Fortner in the wall.
That was Fortner in the wall.
Added 1 to the Darlington stripe tally. And as we watch Fody and Cutlip work along in 3rd and 4th, trying to take over that 2nd and 3rd position from Ryan Gable, they'll probably get it on the back straightaway right here.
Mark Rabilis making his way off pit road.
Yep, there's the orange car you saw to the bottom. Mark's had a tough night at Darlington. He's been in the wall a good bit. He's a large contributor of the stripe counter.
Ryan
and he's
Gable
got the nose damage.
Yep. Ryan Gable letting those guys by. Tyler Fody and Jonathan Cutlip. We'll probably be letting David Tooker by shortly. This is Justin Wadsworth and Trey Holmes running 7th and 8th. Scott Krupp just ahead of them in 6th as Justin Fortner picks up another stripe.
Oh, Justin. These guys have gotten around Chad Frankenfield. Chad had been up in that 6th position. He has fallen back a little bit, and we did get an infield care center for Ray Bracy. If you want to bring him in.
Sure.
I texted him. Tried to get him in here. Hey, Ray. It's David in the booth. You got me, buddy?
I got you loud and clear.
Take us through your night a little bit. I know it's your elite debut, and you're the first one that I retire that I had direct access to text. So how'd it go, and how was it feeling until you made your unfortunate end to the pit barrels?
You know, the first after qualifying, after I made it, I felt pretty confident. I dropped back a little bit at first, but I was really good at saving tires and I was picking up spots, and I think I was in the top 15 near the end of the pit cycle. And then mistake one happened where I overshot the pit and had to drive all the way around with no fuel. So I went down a lap there. Um, and then mistake number two, I mean, then I caught up a lot of spots back there. Feeling good again, just kept with my strategy. But then mistake number two, I didn't pit when I should have pit. I didn't realize after the caution I only had 8 laps of fuel. Didn't think about that. So that put me down another lap, uh, lowering my chances even more significantly. I think even if I had just pitted there, I could have probably gotten the lucky dog at some point. I was really confident with the way I was driving, but and then mistake number three just finished it off for me, where I just, Kyle Larson the pit wall there.
well,
But
hopefully,
I was really feeling really good about it. It was a fun race. I was surprisingly clean for Darlington. I was really happy about it.
give Zach a question there if you want one. But other than that, any shout outs, right?
Um, Shout out to South Shore Racing.
Sound like me
My
saying
team.
in Decor Depot.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my cat who's on the car, kind of subtly on the back. And shout out to you guys again, I guess. Great. It's Elite's always been a good professional series. Surprisingly, like I really enjoy having the opportunity to race with you guys. Yeah, hopefully I can come back and maybe prepare a little bit better next time. Maybe have a crew chief that'll tell me what to do. So.
Well, your team owner told you to run at like 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's probably his fault, honestly. He didn't have
I
enough
blame him.
preparation. So yeah.
I always blame him. So yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, Ray. Thanks for running, and congrats on at least having a debut, man. You had a good run going there, buddy.
Yep. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Ray Bracey, and we'll end up retired back in 33rd. It looks like he'll probably get passed by Robilas at some point. So 34th probably for debut. I had a worse debut in Elite, that's for sure.
I don't remember mine. It's probably better that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Mine was a ways away in my
Gable
memory
on the
bank.
wall.
That won't be the last time, I don't think. Those tires are scorched on the 0-1 car.
He got out of it pretty early there after he had that contact to try and let Trey Holmes and Chad Frankenfield by. I think he understands he's in a little bit of trouble at the moment, and now he's just trying to hang on until the next pit stop. Definitely the decision to try and get those stage points coming back to haunt him a little bit at the moment.
I think Gable will be fine once he can make that next pit stop, and ultimately if he can stay 5 to 10 laps earlier than everybody else in terms of pitting, I think he'll end up with a net positive depending on how this race boils down, because odds are if we do get that later caution, Gable will be ahead of where he otherwise would be running. So
Right.
this should be a net positive for Ryan Gable at the end of the race. We look at now at Matthew Weeks, Ethan Burrell 10th and 11th. I'm wondering if that damage is affecting the 11 car a little bit. We've seen him not really be able to make up ground into this top 10. The top Pro Edge car has been David Tooker, and he's kind of sitting 4th to 7th the whole race long. It's kind of been a bit of a quiet night for this Pro Edge group.
It has been, but I mean, if you're really outside of Stanley, Fody, Cutlip, it's been just a quiet night. Obviously, Scott Crump was up there for a little while. I still think we haven't heard the last from Scott Crump. I think he's still got plenty of speed in that 90 car, but right now about 7.5 seconds back from Ethan Stanley.
See if we can keep Grandpa entertained for the remaining 120 laps of this event. See if Scott Crump can make it work for Junie Donlevy and Dick Brooks and bring this 90 car up to the podium at the very least.
That's just a beautiful car. I mean, the throwback aside, that's just a good-looking race car.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that the one down below as well. It's you got the blue, you got the white, very striking, easy to pick out. Yeah, and Blue Egg, obviously one of our major sponsors for the Elite Racing League, and they're on the doors, they're on the hood. They sponsor Scott Crump. I think that's a partnership through the Lake Norman Group and Tyler Fody. You'll note that Blue Egg also sponsors the Ethan Stanley machine. And they have approved the use of their logo to make great designs on both of those vehicles over the last couple of seasons.
You know, talking about sponsors here in Elite, I will make the aside here. You saw during our commercial break, we got some new video advertisement from Worldwide Technology Raceway. Got the NHRA Midwest Nationals coming up, part of the countdown to the championship over in the NHRA. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. NHRA, drag racing. Always fun whenever I tune into it. And you know, going to Gateway. Obviously, the NASCAR Cup Series has already been there, but the other thing that Gateway is in the news for is they're going to have a playoff race next year.
That is allegedly what's going to happen.
I think Jordan Bianchi posted the schedule today.
Usually once Jordan Bianchi posts it, you can take it to the bank, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that is indeed a thing that is going to happen. And that'll be exciting for those folks over at Gateway. I think that'll be a great race. It'll be interesting to see.
We've seen some wild moments in the next gen car at Gateway. You know, like in this past year, I mean, right? Austin Cindric took home a win. And if you're in the playoffs and you get a bit of an unexpected winner like Austin Cindric, I mean, you could certainly change the swing of the Cup Series playoffs with a race like that. So we've also seen, you know, Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain get into it. WWT, a good partner, put together some good racing once they've gotten their Cup Series data for the last few years.
Up front, Ethan Stanley still about a 4-second lead on Tyler Fody.
Yep. And it was 5 seconds. I think we're hitting that part of the run where Stanley's car is going to go away naturally a little bit more than Fody's and Cutlip's because he stayed out 5 laps longer, or he pitted 5 laps longer than they did, or earlier than they did. And therefore, just naturally, that car is going to start to slow down a little bit quicker than that 40 and the 5. And both Hosack and Stanley get the wall, and that is going to significantly cut into the margin. Those guys behind him are chasing. I hope there's not any damage to the Ethan Stanley car.
I do not see a meatball, but that was about as hard a hit into the wall as we've seen from one of these front-running cars. It'll be interesting to see if that does have any adverse effects on that 91 Blue Egg machine.
Mid-pack, you see it there. They're switching spots back and forth. Matthew Weeks and Chad Frankenfield battling it out for that 8th position. Matthew Weeks does take advantage and pull away from Chad Frankenfield, and Weeks was running with teammate Ethan Burrell, who runs 10th. That is still a fairly sizable gap. Now, Weeks starting to pull away. The 11 car starting to come to life here late in the run.
I will say, taking a quick look at the stopwatch for Ethan Stanley, I think he's going to be all right. He ran a 30.20 that last time by. That was a 10th quicker than the lap before and quicker than even the couple of laps before that brush with the wall. So I think he's going to be just fine for now.
Yep, that car, just a little paint scrape for Ethan Stanley on that Darlington stripe. Ultimately, all right, and as he crosses the line for another consecutive 30.2, Tyler Fody does pick up some ground, but it's not enough of a ground to consider that a significant gain. Tyler Fody still waiting for that car to come in, and I think Tyler Fody's car is the fastest the last 20 laps of the run. That's really where this 40 car starts to pick up speed.
Definitely seeing that gap close. Now, it's not the car directly in front of Fody. Oh, we got a battle here. That is Chad Frankenfield and Ethan Burrell battling for the 9th position.
Burrell unable to get around Chad Frankenfield, and we saw Chad let some folks by earlier in the race. Didn't do that right there. Definitely defended the spot from Ethan Burrell.
Yeah, we're closing in on 100 laps to go. Starting to close in on your more standard distance for one of these Belly Up Sports Cup Series events here in Elite.
Norgard just got the wall.
And that's where the challenge is going to start kicking in, because ultimately it is getting down to that regular race distance. It's time to start ramping up the intensity. But at the same time, we know how tricky this track is. You don't want trying to turn up the intensity to turn into changing a mark, driving a little deeper into the corner, because you're already on the edge. If you start trying to create new boundaries, you're only going to put yourself in the wall.
Norgard is doing exactly what you're talking about right now. Elaine Norgard in the 12 car has changed up everything. He saw those guys get side by side in front of him. He was gaining on them. He's changed up a bunch of stuff, started sailing it into the corner way too deep, and it's resulted in him bouncing off the fence 3 or 4 times in the last couple of laps. That 12 car, man, he almost got it again there coming off of turn 2. Just got to be careful. When you get in a position like that, you do want to have that selective aggression, but Leighton Norgard may be a little too aggressive trying to push and catch Chad Frankenfield and Ethan Burrell, because he's running 11th. He's hunting a top 10 spot. I can understand the aggression, but you can't do it at the cost of your race car.
Oh, for sure. Especially, I mean, again, it seems like it's a little bit sturdier than most places here. I guess it's the old Richard Petty methodology, right? You run up against the fence because it gives you less.
Norgard coming to pit road.
Yeah, Norgard's got to come to pit road here.
He didn't get a meatball from bouncing off the fence, did he? He did not.
I don't know.
Just making sure. He will short pit it though. That's definitely a short pit. Yeah, because here comes Ryan Gable right behind.
So those two guys just outside the top 10 coming to pit road. You see, I believe that's Seth Rawls leaving his pit stall behind them. Obviously, Rawls several laps down.
One of those guys who has short pitted pretty much the entire night.
But kind of to what I was saying, we're not seeing as many of the meatball, the broken wheels, because you're running right up against the fence, so you're not hitting the fence as hard when you get there. But at the same time, you don't want to make a habit out of it, because anytime you do hit the wall is a chance for something to break.
You'll note the lead has shrunk to 3.4 seconds. It was 3.7 a couple of laps ago. That's because Ethan Stanley did precisely the item you're discussing right now. He pushed it a little too much, was up already at the top of the racetrack, but he did graze the outside wall. In so doing, it opened up an opportunity for Tyler Fody to cut into that race lead.
Oh, this is a mess. You've got Ryan Gable on the fresh tires right in front of the leader, and these
Racimus.
Hibbs out of shape.
Hibbs down to the apron. He has to let the leader by. So does Jaden Racimus in the 07. Michael Hosak in the 24 has, I believe, fresh tires. He's just riding behind Ethan Stanley. All of that lap traffic includes Ryan Gable and Leighton Norgard, who just came off pit road. Racimus bounces off the fence.
You're right, that is Jaden Racimus. I may have called it Josh Clark earlier, but that is Jaden Racimus that bounces off the wall there.
Yeah, I think that's Jaden. 2 green and black and white cars. Very, very similar designs from the two of them. We haven't talked much about the younger Racimus brother. Or no, that's the son.
Well, that's one reason, yeah.
is that's Jaden Racimus, Jesse's son, and as Jaden bounces it off the fence once again. That's a young driver learning the ropes here in the Elite Belly Up Cup Series, and as he heads for pit road, 11 laps down. Not the night he was going to want, but track time. That's what's most important right now for Jaden Racimus, getting laps, getting an understanding of these Cup cars and the Darlington Raceway itself.
This place gives fits to even the best drivers, so no reason for Jaden to hang his head on tonight, but certainly a tough outing, 11 laps down, as you said. Now we're looking at Chad Frankenfield, Ethan Burrell. This battle for 9th continues on here as these two drivers make their way off of turn 2. Of course, we mentioned Seth Rawls pitting. just a couple of laps ago, so he's got the fresher tire behind them as well.
We mentioned these two a few laps ago, battling it out when they were right in front of a Leighton Norgard. And Ethan Burrow got to the back bumper of Chad Frankenfield, was unable to make the pass, and has since continued to ride in the tire tracks of this 15 car for that spot right at the back end of the top 10. And with the Leighton Norgard having already pitted, Ryan Gable having already pitted, both of them hit the wall. Chad hit it a lot harder than Ethan did, and Ethan is going to get that 9th spot.
Ethan is going to get the 9th spot, and he's probably going to try to let Seth go here just to let those fresh tires get away. Indeed, Seth Rawls, who I believe was on the apron a little bit there to make his way by, but now he is out in front of those two drivers battling for position. He can try to open up a little bit of breathing room and get away from this battle.
Such a fascinating chess game that this race has been. You've got to play against the drivers on old tires. You're racing, with equal tires to yourself. You have to race against the drivers with older tires potentially. You have to race against the drivers with new tires coming up on the outside, and everybody's a different lap, a different strategy. That's the beauty of this Southern 500. Such a long race yields itself to different strategies, and because it's been green for so long, we've seen so many different strategies and options take place for these drivers. You're seeing a bunch of those play out as we see guys, making these early pit stops like Ryan Gable and Leighton Norgard. You're seeing guys stay out so long like Tyler Fode, Ethan Stanley, Jonathan Cutlip. It's a perfect blend, and that's why we all love Darlington.
Speaking of Fode and Cutlip, the battle for second on your screen right now, as we saw one of those petty cars get a little out of shape down the back stretch. Certainly far enough ahead that they didn't have to worry about it here. But Tyler Fode closing in on Gavin Hibbs, with Jonathan Cutlip starting to fill the mirror.
He's been there the whole run, has Jonathan Cutlip. He's just following in the tire tracks of that 40 car, and my hunch is that he saw Tyler Fode go flying by him before that stage end and said to himself, you know what? I need to figure out how to do that. And came out of pit road right behind the 40 car and said, I'm just going to follow that guy, because it's clear he knows how to keep the tires on the car for a long period of time. And Jonathan Cutlip has ridden right in the tire tracks of Tyler Fode for this entire run, and they are both making big gains on Ethan Stanley. It's now down under 3 seconds, the lead from the 91 down to these two. I envision that Jonathan Cutlip's just trying to keep this 40 car as close as he possibly can.
That 40 car, well, you say that. Cutlip had a peek and then thought better of it, as Fode has got to try to get around Michael Hossack here in the 24 car. And they might get up to Richie Hearn here. Indeed, Richie Hearn will just move aside, let the battle for second breeze by him down the front stretch.
Good move. A lot of good respect getting thrown around by these lappers tonight. These guys have been well within their possibility of putting a lead lap car in the wall, ruining somebody's race, and I've seen a lot of respect from a lot of these lead lap car or lap down cars. And these guys are having to be a little more gracious. They've got fresh tires oftentimes, and we really haven't seen any of the issues beyond that Ryan Gable spin that brought out our only caution of the day.
This is about as good as it can get as far as the Southern 500 goes. It's so easy to find yourself in trouble at this track, but we really haven't seen too many major issues. Obviously, there was the one caution and then a couple of incidents that could have brought out cautions, but did not, according to the iRacing yellow flag system. But overall, it's been a pretty tidy race, especially for a track of this level of difficulty.
For sure. And I'll throw some credit to the next gen car. It's a car that's, I won't say easy to drive, because these guys are shifting, a lot of these guys rather are shifting 2 times per lap, but it is a car that lends itself to be very close to the other drivers, right? And so if you're fast, you're going to be very clearly faster because everybody else is the same speed. And that's kind of how it feels right now with these several front runners. You have 3 guys within 3 seconds of each other, and then you've got the whole rest of the field. 8th place is 10 seconds back because everybody else is the same speed, just a little bit slower.
And you know what? Let's give a shout out to some of these drivers, or this group of drivers as well, because let's be honest about it. Last week, lots of tensions were frayed at Pocono. On Sunday night into Truck Series, we had an early wreck here at Darlington that certainly would have frustrated a lot of drivers. Monday night, late caution really threw a wrench into that race at Motegi into Grand National Series. A lot of these drivers have been in all these races. You know, they were probably already a little bit on edge coming into this race, whether they wanted to admit or not. Both between Darlington, as Trey Holmes gets into the wall, both between it being Darlington, the Southern 500, but just how intense and difficult and challenging these last few races have been under the Elite banner. Fortunately, we've been able to stay away from a lot of that tonight, and we've gotten some really good, clean racing. Everybody's been able to keep their heads on straight, keep their tempers checked, and we've had a good race so far.
We really have. I'm right there with you. And if there was a point in the pack in which you could point to and say there might be something happening over here, it might be these two right here. Scott Crump, Matthew Weeks, not the best of friends over various incidents and discussions with one another, but they've been clean tonight so far. We've seen just a couple of smaller incidents taking place, one of them involving this 11 car, but that was on a pit stop and a missed call out. And, you know, other than that, I mean, we've seen a really, like you said, a really clean race and just a really good job by these drivers. I mean, you know, you weren't here for the Daytona 500, the other full distance race we've run. They ran 170 consecutive green flag laps in the Daytona 500 in the next gen plate package, and you know, I would argue this 280 laps with one caution at Darlington, that might be more impressive than the 170 at Daytona. I mean, it's difficult to run around here without causing an incident, coming up into somebody, creating an incident or a big wreck. You know, with the tire disparities and all that. I mean, this is very impressive.
You talk about that tire disparity. There you see Ryan Gable blowing by these two drivers. He's got fresh tires. He's once again taken the undercut. He's got to get away from this battle for the 6th position, which is really picking up. Matthew Weeks to the inside of Scott Crump. He's got to try to make the
contact.
There's the hip check into the wall. Scott Crump and Matthew Weeks has got to pick up the spot, but I can't imagine Scott Crump is going to be pleased about how that played out.
Yeah, you have access to the comms. I do not. Scott's gonna get up into the wall, and something like that can take you out of your rhythm, right? Scott was in a rhythm. He was clean and green. He was fine. A little bit of door contact, a little bit of wall contact. Now your temper's up, and suddenly you find yourself making another mistake that compounds your race. Thus far, Scott hasn't made that mistake, but it's very easy. As you can see, just how easy it is to set the race on its head, as he'll have to let a Leighton Norgard and the fresh tires by.
You mentioned me having access to the driver's chat. I know Scott Crump said something. I did not catch what it was. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they were not making Thanksgiving plans.
Yeah, I believe it is. I believe Matthew Weeks has gotten into Scott Crump a couple of times, and here's a battle for second. Oh, Cutlip got loose on corner entry. Fody almost got up into the wall. Neither of them had a clean corner, and both of them are still gaining on Ethan Stanley. David Hooker might have just gotten into the fence. No, he did not. He was letting by Josh Clark. My apologies. Saw that car slow on my replay. I was a little worried there was contact. There was not.
Well, now, just in front of Ethan Stanley, obviously this battle for second picking up, but there's another of these...
Oh! There's contact! That's the race leader, Ethan Stanley, into Christopher.
Somehow Stouffer saved that car. I don't know how he pulled that off, but we will stay green. But obviously a huge time loss for Ethan Stanley there.
How did Christopher save that car? He was fully spun.
Yeah, Stouffer got into Jeff Green, which stalled both of these cars out right in front of Ethan Stanley. He really had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It would have been hard to fit 3 wide there. I'm sure it could have been done if Ethan could have planned for it, but definitely no chance to react in the middle of the corner like that. Somehow, Stouffer doesn't spin. Somehow, Stanley doesn't end up in a whole big heap of trouble, and now he's on pit road.
Yeah, that's probably for the best for Ethan Stanley. He really did hold serve with that undercut the last time through. Okay, that's on Dave's end then. The light issue on pit road come Matthew Week. No. Yeah, this is a scoring issue on our pylon. Apologies. On pit road, David Hooker.
So now Tyler Fode
has the race lead by 0.3 of a second over Jonathan Cup.
There you see those leaders making their way through turns 3 and 4.
So you're Jonathan Cullip. You've had a dominant car tonight, but you've been behind these two Lake Norman Chevys for this middle stint since Fode got on the loud pedal there at the end of the run to the stage. You're right behind Tyler Fode. You've kept him in check the whole way through. Do you? Well, I was going to say, when do you make your pit? Now is the time.
Now is apparently the time for Jonathan Cutlip. He has made the decision. He is headed to pit road.
Oh! Did he speed?
Survey says...
I see no black flag.
No, he's clean.
That was... Oh, we got race
Michael
control
Goodman
cleared it.
He did speed.
Yep.
Man.
Double check with Robert.
Yep, drive through coming for Jonathan Cutlip. That's a huge, huge blow under green.
Oh. And for such a dominant car, for a guy who really needs a race win more than anything. I felt like he was just biding his time. I felt like he was in a position to take advantage of a potential undercut or something along those lines. But yeah, Jonathan Cullip is going to get the black flag right there for speeding on pit road, and it was just a little bit too quick on pit road entry. We'll take a look here and back it up. You can see he ended up, I think, locking up the right front to try and avoid doing what Ray Bracey and Andrew Rucker did. Cutlip comes back down pit road and will perform the drive through. Yeah, we'll get back to it here. But what I saw was that right front tire lock up and Cutlip start to slide towards the barrels, and he had to almost get it gassed up and woed down at the same time to get it turned away from the barrels, but ultimately just a little bit too fast on pit road entry there.
So now, Tyler Fode still out on track, still leading, about 10-second advantage at the moment, but obviously still waiting for some of these pit stops to cycle through. Ethan Burrell calling out he will be pitting this time from the 4th position. There you see Ethan Burrell. Did he get woed up?
I thought he did.
I think so. Looks like
that
he
looked
did.
That looked a little better than Cutlip's. You'll note the tendencies of the drivers have maintained through the entirety of this race, right? Tyler Fode, Matthew Weeks, Scott Crump have been the drivers willing to stretch the fuel, stretch the tires as long as they can go. Ryan Gable, one of those drivers, he's up there in 4th. He's got the most undercut, but Ethan Stanley, another one with a big undercut. Those guys have maintained their strategy through the course of this race. As Dusty Dewar down pit road, Leighton Norgard unlaps himself.
Dave, I'm out of curiosity. How long have been some of these runs for guys like Tyler Fode? Let's see. So I'm seeing a 77, 76 for some of the longer. The previous stint, obviously, they're still working on this run. So what I'm curious on for anybody that pitted, like if you're looking at Ryan Gable, Leighton Norgard, I think they're gonna have to pit one more time. Whereas,
here comes Fode now.
Should be good the rest of the way.
Right. Those guys might be banking on a yellow as things get down towards the end of this race. Fode Does not speed on pit road, did not appear. See if Crump follows his teammate down pit road.
And see, that's the cost benefit. You know, we were talking about those stage points early on, but you have to be careful chasing those because, indeed, if the race does go green, you've added a pit stop by not getting yourself into that window when you chose short pit.
Right. So any ground you make up immediately becomes nullified because you had to come down pit road that extra time. As Scott Crump has gotten the Dick Brooks Junie Don Levy throwback a lap lead, and he overcooked the pit road entry there. Let's see if he can get it woed up.
Down. He's looking all right so far.
Yep,
I think
he
he's
made
good.
it. Top though, right? That was a really good example of what we've been talking about that pit road entry. So easy to just overcook it, and had Scott Crump not been quite so on the brakes there and woeing that car back, pulling it down the racetrack, he could very easily have overshot the pit stall or rather the pit road entry and had to go around another time, and that would be very costly for a guy looking to grab a podium finish.
I mean, that's the worst part, right? Is either you speed and you have to take the drive-through, or you've come to a complete stop and you miss the pit road entirely, and you have to come from basically a dead stop to get up to speed to make another lap just to slow down again. Or the absolute worst case scenario, what we've seen a couple of times with guys like Andrew Rucker and Ray Bracey, where you just end your night in the pit barrels.
Right. Yeah. There's a very fine line where you're actually going to line up and feel good about your pit stop. Otherwise, you felt like you went too slow, or you wound up having to go around the racetrack again, or you had to wound up having to come down pit road again. Real easy to wind up screwing that up as Scott Crump comes out a little bit behind the race leader. We're tracking with Ryan Gable. He is 0.8 of a second ahead of Leighton Norgard. Those are the first two cars to come down pit road. We are under the impression they cannot go all the way on fuel. I'm also under the impression it's not going to matter. Ethan Stanley's a 1.6 back, and Ryan Gable is a little bit loose.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have to lead much longer, as you see Chad Frankenfield getting back on the lead lap, making his way around Ryan Gable. He doesn't have to worry about getting a caution for a free pass now. And there you see Ethan Burrell will be next in line to do so. Scott Crump behind him. So they'll be looking to get back on the lead lap as well. And Ryan Gable just hanging on at this point.
Norgard into the wall off turn 2 fairly sizably. Tack another Darlington stripe on there as Crump will go to unlap himself around his teammate, and Ethan Stanley will go to take the race lead away from teammate Ryan Gable.
And there is the lead change, about as easy as you can ask for it. Ryan had a handful out turn 4 right there. I don't know how easy it was to pick up there on the camera, but he was quite out of shape on the exit of turn 4 as he was letting Ethan Stanley by for the lead.
Yeah, and Ethan Stanley now starting to drive away from Ryan Gable, and we'll see. Tyler Fode's picked up 4 seconds since he came off pit road. He came off pit road 18 seconds behind Gable. He's picked up 4 seconds, running 6th. Stanley is the car he's got to catch. I don't know that Fode's gonna have enough time.
There you see Ryan Gable letting a couple of these cars with fresher tires by, Jesse Racimus being one of them. I think the other one may have been Ty McIntosh in the Cole Witt throwback. And
Yep.
now
I don't
you
think
see Evan Hibbs going by as well.
I don't think we covered the Ty McIntosh Cole Witt throwback. I think that might be the only one we haven't tossed up on the screen tonight. There it is, 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
Cole Witt ran the 35 car in the Daytona 500, and Ty McIntosh is thrown back to it in his number 35 tonight.
I love those obscure ones. I mean, you know me with some of my throwback choices over the seasons. I love when, don't get me wrong, we all love those iconic, the Richard Petty's, the Terry Labonte's, the all of that. And I've run my fair share of Mark Martins over the years, but I love when you get these obscure ones like Cole Witt also.
Yeah. There's a beautiful synergy in the paint schemes that are good because we know they're good because they lasted for years and years, and the paint schemes that are good because they're fun. And throwing a Cole Witt scheme on a car, super fun. Throwing the Dick Brooks scheme on a car, super fun. Not one that I would have thought of, right? That's what makes the throwback weekend so fun is we get to watch Mark Martin race against Tony Stewart, but you also get to watch Cole Witt out there on the racetrack too.
So there, now we look at, this is Ryan still in the second position. This is a battle for second. Leighton Norgard going for that second spot.
Yeah, and he's got it. Norgard into second. The David Tooker's going to take over second very shortly here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be short-lived for Leighton Norgard. He's going to be back in. It's going to be a clean little trade to stay into third place. I'm going to let Ryan go. Or I'm going to pass Ryan Gable, and then I'm going to let David Tooker go.
After he bounces off the wall again.
He's gotten to the wall again.
Ryan almost did. He's hung that car out every single time on corner exit.
I don't know. Leighton's put up a little bit more of a fight than I expected, but that time just no chance. David Tooker with the huge run around the bottom of 3 and 4 moved David Tooker up to the second position in the number 19.
Yep. I'm keeping my eye on Tyler Fode's gap to Ethan Stanley at the moment. That's, I think, the big crux question as we watch Chad Frankenfield, Ethan Burrell, Scott Crump, and Hunter Smith battling for 9th place through 12th. And Hunter Smith had undercut this group and had been in front of them. He is now behind them. That gap not really coming down, though, for Tyler Fode. 13.8. It's come down a little bit, but he's going to need a lot more, and he just completely lagged out and came back on my screen. So a little bit of connection issues and a lot of race distance issues. He's got a long way to go to make up on Ethan Stanley here with only, 60 laps to go?
59 laps to go is what I'm seeing for Tyler Fode, currently in the 6th position. Like you say, that's a huge, even without another pit stop, that's a huge amount of ground to make up over these final laps. We'll see what he's able to do, but that's quite a gap ahead of Tyler Fode.
Yep, keep watching guys bounce off the fence and add to our stripe counter up to 55 Darlington stripes tonight. And as you said, Zach, I just don't know if Fode can make up this gap. That Ethan Stanley has done a marvelous job of capitalizing on the gains of the fresh tires without compromising the pace of this 91 car. And in so doing, he's got the race lead. He's got a sizable advantage over second place, and most importantly, he's got a sizable advantage over the fastest car in the field to this point, and that's that 40 car at Tyler Fode.
Well, we were discussing that. You saw on screen Scott Crump take the 10th position from Ethan Burrell. So move Scott Crump into the top 10. Hunter Smith will be next to catch Ethan Burrell.
They have Chad. We might want to focus on that battle, I think, because it starts with Trey Holmes, and Matthew Weeks and Trey Holmes are side by side right in front of Chad Frankenfield and Scott Crump. That's there it is.
Contact.
3 wide in turn 1 at Darlington. Oh, Trey Holmes sideways and in the wall with Chad Frankenfield. They all keep it straight. No caution. Oh, they're gonna wreck.
Oh, now there's a caution.
Now the caution will be out. Holmes, Smith, and Racimus, and the lack of speed was just too great, I think, for those guys to avoid it. And the big gap Ethan Stanley had erased. And we need to go back even further than this. Seth Rawls.
What on earth?
Seth Rawls he went to the apron to dodge it. I think he thought he would have a little more turning power. But Weeks makes it through, and I think the contact between Crump and Frankenfield with Holmes having checked was just a little too great. Rawls cuts to the bottom to avoid, but you'll see him hit the wall on corner exit right there. That can't be good for the 25 car. And then the similar problem for Hunter Smith and Jesse Racimus getting into Trey Holmes, who had already been slowed by the contact between he and Chad Frankenfield.
Now, as this is a terrible break, obviously, for Trey Holmes, who has been running in the top 10 all night and then gets the worst part of this.
Oh, yeah.
Especially right there. You know who this is a good break for?
Ryan Gable and Leighton Norgard.
Your lucky dog's going to be Jonathan Cutlip.
Oh, there's another good big break, and I think that we'll see a few of those guys also take the wave around that are one lap down. We only have 4 or 5 of them, and beyond one of them being Trey Holmes right here and Hunter Smith the other, I think we'll see some of those guys stay out, try to get back on the lead lap, and they will give a tally to Scott Crump for the initial contact, and then they will give a tally to Jaden Racimus for the subsequent follow-up contact with Holmes and Hunter Smith for coming back up onto the racetrack and causing the caution.
Oh, look at the right front damage. I see. Yeah, Trey Holmes. I mean, that's huge damage on the right front of that 88 car, and
Yeah,
just a tough wreck because he was the innocent bystander in both of those incidents. I mean, he's just minding his own business when Crump and Frankenfield make contact, and then as he's trying to get gathered back up, then there's the other incident that just slams him into the wall.
Yep. It's tough. It's tough for tough break for Trey Holmes. Tough break for Chad Frankenfield. Scott Crump, ultimately the one that gets the tally for this contact. I don't think it was terribly egregious contact, but it was him attempting to make a pass as Chad swung low to make a pass, and poorly timed drop to the bottom of the racetrack, and in so doing, you see there the contact. A little bit of netcode, but I think there would have been contact regardless. So let's, I think, take a quick commercial break while we can here and run our ads one time, come back for the restart.
Flames will burn and sparks will fly at the NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Kickoff race weekend in style with 2 qualifying sessions in one day, plus the can't-miss show of Nitro Under the Lights on Friday, September 27th. Get tickets at WWTRaceway.com with kids 12 and under free and general admission. The NHRA Midwest Nationals, September 27th through 29th at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer.
It depends on how long it is, but all right, we're back. About to come to the restart. We're about to come to the restart. Ethan Stanley alongside David Tooker, Justin Wadsworth alongside Leighton Norgard, Ryan Gable alongside Tyler Fody. Coming to 50 laps to go. Things are about to get intense. Green flag is back out, and Ethan Stanley will get the big jump. The Lake Norman teammate of Justin Wadsworth will also get a strong jump on third. And Scott Crump got a big jump on teammate Tyler Fody. They'll go side by side into turn 1.
All that talk about pitch strategies we've done all night long, throw it out the window. You know, all these guys have racked up for this 50-lap shootout to end it. It's a brand new ball game, and Ethan Stanley's leading the way right now.
Ethan Stanley performed the undercut perfectly. He got the big advantage. He cycled to the lead, and now it's going to be on Tyler Fody as Leighton Norgard into the outside wall. Crump has to take evasive action to avoid. Fody's going to get to the inside of Norgard for 4th. That's the battle right now.
Tyler Fody to the inside of a Leighton Norgard. We've seen the struggles Leighton has had off turn 2. He's in the fence again. So is Chad Frankenfield behind him. Here comes Tyler Fody. Can Tyler Fody get the slide job here in turn 3?
He got it. Now can Scott Crump add to that total for the Lake Norman cars. He's working to the inside of Norgard. Gable's trapped in behind Norgard. Norgard just a little bit slower than these guys right now, but fighting strong on the outside lane. Crump dives into turn 1. He'll make it stick. 90 car up to P5. Norgard back to 6th.
Behind Norgard, almost some contact there with Ethan. Oh, Norgard hard in the wall. Gable, they're still bouncing off each other. Still,
Norgard's going to get...
How did Hosek miss him?
Okay.
No right front. No right front for Ryan Gable. He's in the wall.
He's in the wall hard. Is that going to be a caution? Yes. Yes, it is. And that will be a boon for Leighton Norgard, but the contact with Ryan Gable broke the right front on the 0-1. The caution flag comes out. I can only imagine for the 0-1 car, and that's the second incident he's been involved in today. And yeah, you can see the tire wobbling and wiggling after the contact with Norgard. What happened to Norgard before this?
I'm not entirely sure, but somehow in all of that, it breaks the right front on Ryan's car, and he was saying repeatedly on the voice chat to try and warn guys he was not going to make turn 3. That car was not turning. Fortunately, he didn't get into guys like Chad Frankenfield as that car careened back up the banking. We'll take a look here on the Mark Revelos replay machine. No, it just cuts loose.
Yep.
And
12 car got just a teensy bit loose, and it cuts back and bangs off the outside wall. There's the contact with Gable. I think the right front's already down. You can see it wiggling.
Yeah, indeed. I think you are right.
Now it's really down. You can see it bobbing and weaving out the side of the car.
Yeah, it's bouncing around at that point. I still don't know how Hossack misses that.
We can go on board with Hossack after this.
And then the back bumper of Chad Frankenfield's car would also be a sight as Gable comes flying back up to banking.
Plows it into the outside wall. Who is this that dives through? Is that... Oh, it's Gavin Hibbs. Oh. And I think Jeff Green's going to get an incident there, and that will prevent Green from getting the lucky dog.
Oh, that's tough.
All right, on board with Hossack, Chad out the back bumper, and probably Gavin Hibbs. I might have to back it up a little bit for Hossack. Yeah, no, you're right. Oh! And he's already not making 3. And no, Gable hits the wall right in front of him. And that's part of the reason Hibbs had nowhere to go, was Michael Hossack had also come back up the racetrack in front. And so Hibbs has ended up with a track block in front of him. I'm sure what we'll see when upon review of this is Hibbs sees no holes, no nothing. A rear bumper.
This one, right here. This is fine.
Into the wall goes Ryan Gable, and then we'll go on board with Gavin Hibbs. And you know what? Here, I'll call Gavin Hibbs to the booth during our on board with him. All right, Gavin, we're gonna go on board with you on the replay here. You can take us through what you saw, but I think we know you saw 2 cars really slow right in front of you, huh?
Yeah, I was just trying to brake for the corner, and then I saw Gavel was up by the wall. And then I was trying to brake a lot harder to make sure I don't hit him, and yeah, just nothing I could do really. That pretty much sums up our night. Just really disappointing.
I mean, we're on board with you now. I mean, just right into Ryan, but also the 24 car was slow on the bottom too, and tough
and Jeff Green to his inside as well. Just really nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
that's. Yeah.
Any notes on? We do have the tally as per your sorry, not the tally, but the Darlington stripe counter as per your suggestion earlier today. That was a great idea. We're up to 60. I think a few of them were you though.
Only a few, man. I'd say that's a win. To hear you say it's only a few of those 60 have been mine. So, but yeah, just really bummed out of how this race went. Thought I had a good chance to run really good, but just these tires, man, in this car.
Any shout outs for us here before we send you off? Kurt Busch looked pretty good out there.
Yeah, it sure did look good out there. You know, Pitch Designs, obviously my company, and Shift Esports with Seth. We wanted to. This will be my final year at Shift. I told Seth before the season, and really wanted to come out here and set the world on fire. But we're setting cars on fire.
Yeah. Tough start, Gavin, but in a win in your in system, all you need is one, man. So good luck next couple weeks.
Yep. Thank you, boys.
That is Gavin Hibbs, driver of the number 95 50 Sports Ford, and a tough break getting involved in that wreck. Our third caution of the night, and now we're gonna restart. Stanley and Tooker still 1-2. Then it'll be the Lake Norman trio of Wadsworth, Fody, and Crump, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
And oh, by the way, amidst all of that, Jonathan Cutlip got up to 7th, lining up inside row 4 for this restart. Ethan Stanley back out front. David Tooker going to slot into 2nd. Behind that, Justin Wadsworth is going to hold on to that 3rd spot.
2 more in the wall, Johnny Thomas and Carlos Acosta up front. I would watch the 90 and the 11 side by side. They've already made contact twice in this race. And Scott Crump's not giving Matthew Weeks any room off turn 4. Unfortunately for Crump, the car's a little too tight. Now he's getting swarmed by Ethan Burrell now. Jonathan Cutlip to the outside of the 90.
Matthew Weeks holds on to that 5th spot. Scott Crump going to have to battle with Ethan Burrell there. And here is Jonathan Cutlip.
Oh, Nick Massey around behind. Massey hits the inside wall a ton, and as per Darlington Raceway, no caution. Up front, Matthew Weeks past Tyler Fody in all the chaos. And Burrell and Cutlip are side by side for 7th.
There you see the battle side by side, Cutlip and Burrell. Cutlip trying to get into the 7th position again. He will. Meanwhile, there you see Matthew Weeks and Tyler Fody.
Here comes Fody down to the bottom of the racetrack. Matthew Weeks and Fody have had a number of battles. They made some contact last week that neither one was happy about. Now they're close again off turn 4.
Hearing tally issued to the 15, I believe, for that incident we saw that did not bring out a caution.
I think also Leighton Norgard got the one. Got responsibility for getting that 12 car loose on the other one. The 3rd caution of the race. And Tyler Fody unable to get after Matthew Weeks. Here comes Jonathan Cutlip on Scott Crump. And Racine is slow on the bottom of the racetrack. You'll see them flash by him. Up front, David Tooker is putting some pressure on Ethan Stanley, but the battle seems to be back here in the Matthew Weeks, Tyler Fody, Scott Crump, Jonathan Cutlip range. This group is all over each other.
All over each other indeed from about 4th on back. Tyler Fody trying a different line there through 3 and 4, trying to get the run down the hill on Matthew Weeks. But right now, Matthew Weeks able to keep about a car length separation.
Yeah, you've got, it's funny how this seems to always shape up in this Elite Cup Series as Weeks blinks a little bit. You've got you've got Lake Norman, Pro Edge, Lake Norman, Pro Edge, Lake Norman, Field Up, and then Pro Edge in the top 8. Amazing how it always works out that way.
Down to 37 laps to go. Tyler Fody in that 40 car trying to find a way around Matthew Weeks in the 11. I believe that was Jesse Racimus we briefly got a glimpse of.
He is
exiting pit road.
He's puttering around the track there on the bottom. Cutlip had to check the most, and Burrell had to try to go to the inside. He's not going to find any running room. Behind Burrell, Chad Frankenfield has arrived on the scene, and I believe Chad's got the freshest tires. He would have pitted, I think, on this last pit stop, and that car looks to be alive a little bit, trying to take advantage of the fresh tires despite the damage.
Scott Crump got a pretty good exit off turn 2. Now he's going to have to pull to the inside to defend.
He got a bump. He got a bump from Cutlip.
So Cutlip is going to move up to the 6th position. Scott Crump is going to lose a ton of ground. He's He's down to 10th, and he really hadn't gotten it gathered back up all the way exiting turn 4. He's still losing time.
Yeah, got a bump from Jonathan Cutlip and Scott Crump. I think that's, 3 incidents he's kind of been on the receiving end of. And the one time he actually ran into anybody, it was definitely not on purpose with he and Chad Frankenfield. Picked up the tally there, but not happy. The driver of the 90 car, Scott Crump.
I could definitely see both sides of that one, though. Crump and Cutlip made the move at about the same time. I don't think either one was reacting to the other, but at that point for Cutlip, he's committed to his move. I don't know how much time he would have had to react to Crump also making the move at the same time.
Right, and that's corner entry on turn 3, right where they were. Cutlip had maybe a quarter of a second, half a second to actually press on that brake pedal enough to slow that car down and prevent that contact. I just, especially at this point in the night, being more aggressive, 50 laps to go, you got to go for it. I mean, you just have to make the move and hope it sticks.
And look, we've been in that situation before too. Even if he had time to react, there's always that chance he said, you know what, I'm not going to let you block me. It's 30 to go.
Yep. Certainly a possibility given that Jonathan Cutlip trying to overcome his own mistake of speeding on pit road, and very clear, pole winner. That is the fastest car in the field, and I don't know that points are going to matter for this car. He's got to win a race in order to make the playoff, given his dismal start to the season. That car stayed connected to the field the whole way so far. So Jonathan Cutlip looking to try and find a way around Tyler Fode. If he could clear by Matthew Weeks, I think Jonathan Cutlip could go up there and try to win this race, but he's just mired in traffic right now.
Mired in traffic indeed. Trying to find his way through this stack up of cars, but right as they fight, I mean, now this group is close to 4 seconds behind Ethan Stanley and David Tooker. Those two cars have checked out. Justin Wadsworth hanging out in the 3rd position, while these guys continue to fight for 4th. And here comes Cutlip. I don't know if he got enough of a run, but he's got alongside Tyler Fode.
He's going to throw it in there, and Cutlip thinks better of it. He painted that 40 car. He doesn't want to ruin it. It's my goal there, but Cutlip definitely had the nose, as here comes Scott Crump on a Leighton Norgard back for 9th, and he'll think better of that and lock it back in line. Once these guys have picked up the pace, we have seen a real inability to make any passes.
Well, Scott Crump has caught back up to this group. You see there, he's right on the back bumper of a Leighton Norgard who, to make an understatement, has had a handful at a couple of times in this race, and he's right up against the wall right now as they make their way out of turn 2. A little bit out of shape there, as well as somebody behind them may have got a piece of the wall. A Leighton Norgard trying to find his way around Chad Frankenfield.
And right now, these guys seem like they're locked kind of in just where they are right now in the single file line. I just don't know if there's much of anything that any of them can do. And yep, there we go. 69 Darlington stripes for the counter. A nice result.
Up front, David Tooker is right there. Right there. He's been lurking about 2 or 3 car lengths back. Ethan Stanley can't rest easy here. I mean, he's been one of the best cars all night, but that 19 has stuck with him on this run since the last restart. And Justin Wadsworth has stayed in touch with him. He's about a half second behind David Tooker. He's not completely in the mix, but he's hanging out right there. He has them in his sights.
Tooker all over the back. And, the battle last week was Ethan Stanley versus those Pro Edge Toyotas. Tooker, I think, missed the race, ended up not taking part, but ultimately that 19 car saw his team cars dominate the race, and then Ethan Stanley went and knocked one of them out of the way on the last lap last week. As he gets the wall a teensy bit, we'll give him a Darlington stripe, but Tooker's definitely in the spot to take advantage of the proximity to the race lead, and Justin Wadsworth definitely in a spot where he can pounce if anything should happen between these two.
Definitely 25 laps to go. We're getting down to the end of it. You know, these guys are giving it all they have at this point with the Southern 500 on the line. And there's a very good chance it's got to come down to these two guys if we stay green here. Obviously, Justin Wadsworth, again, just hanging out right there. But right now, the 91 and the 19 are the cars to beat at the moment.
Wadsworth had a rough turn 3 last time, lost a 10th. But he had been otherwise gaining on this duo in front of him, and he's back to gaining. He's very strong in 1 and 2, is Wadsworth. But 3 and 4 seems to be the point where he loses a little bit of that time. And therein lies, can Wadsworth pick up the time as Crump moving past Frankenfield and Norgard. The battle back here still shaping up. Crump and Frankenfield are side by side back for 8th. And Cutlip going after Fody again right in front. Oh, Crump's gonna get into Chad. Oh, Cutlip bailed out of it right as I moved us up there.
Yeah, Crump had to back out of that. He almost ran Chad Frankenfield into the wall there.
And Tyler Fody has to be somewhat kicking himself. He stayed out really long on that one run, wound up in 6th. Hadn't made it by a few of the guys that are currently in front of him who had short pitted at that time. I still don't know if had this race gone green, Tyler Foote would have caught Ethan Stanley. He had a long way to go, but it seems the caution has been the detrimental point for a car that for a minute in the middle of this race looked pretty unbeatable. He got like a 3 or 4 second lead at the end of a run and then was tracking to take the lead right back shortly after our second stage end.
There you see, Chad, I think he may have kept it out of the wall that time, but Frankenfield getting very close to the wall off turn 2. Way up the hill that time for Tyler Fody, while Matthew Weeks is wrapping right around that white line through turns 3 and 4.
Fody's pushing a little bit, trying to get back to the back bumper of that 11 car, but both of them are eating into the lead of Ethan Stanley and David Tooker. At the moment, see Weeks' time starting to come down on the tracker with 20 laps to go. Ethan Burrell and Norgard both smack the outside wall on the exit of turn 2. These guys are pushing hard right now.
Definitely pushing hard. 20 laps to go in the Southern 500 at Darlington.
You can see up front, no change. Stanley about 0.2 of a second ahead of David Tooker. That's just how it's been for the last 8 or 9 laps since we were last looking at that battle. That's why we're staying here. Chad in the wall hard. That might have hurt the 15 car right there. No meatball flag, but down to the inside comes Scott Crump.
Will be another chance there for Crump to take that 8th position. They'll go side by side into turn 1. You know Chad's not going to back out of it, even with that contact earlier. Crump can't make the pass.
Tough spot for Scott Crump to do that, especially because he knows if he bounces it off of Chad Frankenfield, they've already made contact in this race, so should Chad lose the car, that might be the end of Scott's night. Can't take your chances there. Would rather finish 9th than what would that be? 25th, 30th. So Scott also thinking about the big picture a little bit on that front. And the gap from first to second has started to open up. David Tooker has either made a mistake or the like, and Ethan Stanley has opened up half a second back to that 19 car.
Yeah, Ethan Stanley really opening up the gap the last few laps. You see it's almost 0.6 of a second as they come to the line to start. 16 laps to go. Justin Wadsworth might even be closing in on David Tooker for that second spot, certainly losing ground to Ethan Stanley, but he might have a shout at a second here over these final 16 laps.
Oh, here comes Fody on Weeks. Weeks blocking way back. They're going to go into 3 side by side. Fody's on the apron. He is not going to be able to make that happen. Oh, he's going to try. Contact between the 11 and 40. Down into turn 1. They're going to go side by side. Fody not quite there in position, but he's going to fire it in anyway. And he's going to end up behind the Matthew Weeks number 11. A very tight race as Weeks and Bodie battle in front of Jonathan Cutlip, this is fourth, fifth, and sixth. And they are catching the front trio, but they're not catching them quickly enough to take advantage, I don't believe.
Even if they were, it's got to be hard to make up the time you need to make up if you're racing each other that hard for the fourth position. But now that gap underneath 3 seconds for Matthew Weeks.
Mm-hmm. And Tooker in the wall hard. Can Wadsworth collect second here? He's looking to the top. Tooker fires it in, and Wadsworth kind of slows up, wraps the bottom. Justin Wadsworth in the the Jeff Gordon throwback, trying to work to the inside of Tooker. A little bit of contact between the Lake Norman Chevy and the Pro Edge Toyota.
Ethan Stanley, I think, got a
big
piece
run by Wadsworth.
Well, here's Wadsworth. He's got to take the second spot. And all of that battling and contact with the wall, Weeks made up almost a half second on these leaders this lap.
Big move by Wadsworth into one, gives the 6 car that second spot. Now Lake Norman 1-2, Tooker third, Weeks fourth. Those are both Pro Edge Toyotas. And for now, Wadsworth starting to pull away from David Tooker, but it's all Ethan Stanley out in front. And as you mentioned, Zach, Matthew Weeks 2.5 seconds back of Ethan Stanley now. With Tyler Fode just another 10th behind. I just don't think they have enough time. I don't even know if they're going to catch David Tooker.
We're going to find out here in these final 12 laps, but right now, Ethan Stanley about a 9/10 of a second advantage over Justin Wadsworth. As they come to the line, it'll be 11 laps to go this time for the leaders.
Wadsworth picked up on Ethan Stanley that lap, ever so slightly. He took it from 9, he took about a 10th out of Stanley. He's got to do that every lap if he wants to catch this 91 and take home a Southern 500 win close to the outside wall where Tooker and Weeks. Ultimately, I wouldn't give him a stripe there. Let's see if Wadsworth can pick up time in 3 and 4. Yeah, he's picking it up. Wadsworth's definitely closing a little bit on Ethan Stanley.
Justin Wadsworth says, don't write the check just yet. There you see the interval made up 600ths that time by. Like you say, he's got to make up about a 10th on each of these final 10 laps.
That was good. That was a good corner.
He's hanging it all out. He was up against the fence, but he made up time through turns 1 and 2. We'll see what he does in 3 and 4.
Backed up the corner a good bit. You can see the time went up, but Wadsworth's going to get a pretty sizable run off. It's now about 3/4 of a second with 9 laps to go. He doesn't have to get a full 10th every lap, but he does have to continue to gain on Ethan Stanley. He's got to run perfect laps here the rest of the way. Does Justin Wadsworth. Out back, it's Matthew Weeks, David Tooker, and Tyler Fode. They're going to start battling. I think you just got to focus forward if you're Wadsworth and try to go hunt down Ethan Stanley.
I understand the point situation, but man, it's got to be, if you're from Tooker on back. Well, now I say that Tooker Weeks side by side for the third position. Weeks on the hunt. The closer he can get to these front runners, I mean, if they start racing, then it's a whole new ball game.
Right, but I would say there's no team orders over at Lake Norman, but it would be a polite request from the two of them to finish 1-2, even if that comes at somewhat of a slight expense of Justin Wadsworth's opportunity to take the win from Ethan Stanley. I think they would much prefer that result be a 1-2 for Lake Norman, as here David Tooker trying to hold off Tyler Fode and run a bit of a pick to give Matthew Weeks some breathing room. Tooker and Fode make a little bit of contact there in 1 and 2. Fode's going to have to check up. Another little bit of contact. Now Cutlip to the outside of Fode, and Fode unable to get by Tooker. It has opened it up for Matthew Weeks.
Cutlip backed up the entry there. He's got to try to get cut underneath Tooker here. Try to get that spot that way. Fode clear of Tooker. And here comes Cutlip. Moved Jonathan Cutlip into the top 5.
Don't look now. Justin Wadsworth has reeled down that gap to Ethan Stanley. He's at 0.6 of a second. He got another 10th last time through. He's picking up time on the back straightaway, but picking up more time is Matthew Weeks in the 11. So this is going to come down to the end. It's one of them classic Darlington finishes where everybody's chasing the race leader. Everybody's picking up time on him, but can they get around him?
The time is running out, but Justin Wadsworth is on the hunt. This race is not over yet. We'll find out. Can he get the job done? Can he close that gap?
Oh, Weeks in
5
the wall.
laps to go.
Took her in the wall. The thing about Matthew Weeks is he can't get trapped in behind Wadsworth here if he wants to go up there and try to challenge Ethan Stanley for taking a win away from him last week. I just don't think he's going to have enough time at this point, and that's barring a caution flag. We only have 4 laps to go, but it looks like the inroads Wadsworth's making have kind of bottomed out, and at this point, it's Ethan Stanley's race to lose.
The gap has flattened out a little bit over these last couple of laps, but man, Matthew Weeks is about to really change the complexion because he is going to be there for Justin Wadsworth in this battle for second.
that David Tucker gave Tyler Fody to get by. I think Justin Wadsworth's certainly about to create a similar roadblock for Matthew Weeks. I think Justin Wadsworth definitely wants to grab a podium right here for that Lake Norman Racing bunch, and I think that would be Wadsworth's first podium for this Lake Norman Racing group. He finished second on Sunday. He's certainly fast around this place at Darlington, and it seems like that they've kind of picked up on Ethan Stanley a little bit. He's up to half a second, but the group behind is really closed in on Wadsworth, and let's see if he can finish it off here. Coming to 2 to go.
We talked about these throwbacks all night long. Between these top 3, you've got about I think 9 Southern 500 wins when you're talking about the real life cars.
Oh, all 4 of them got in the wall. I think you're right. There's another one that won a bunch of Southern 500s there on the apron. Wadsworth to the bottom. Fody going to try to get underneath Weeks. Weeks going to try to get to the outside of Wadsworth. They're going to be side by side for third. And now Fody's going for a Lake Norman triple podium. White flag in the air for Ethan Stanley.
White flag presented by Whiplash Simcams. Tyler Fody, Matthew Weeks side by side.
Leaning on each other.
1 and 2. This is
Still
the battle
leaning on each
third.
other. Still leaning on each other out of turn 2. Wadsworth is 4/10 back. Cutlip looking 3 wide bottom. The battle is for third. Ethan Stanley up front. He's going to go out and win the Southern 500. Wadsworth's going to finish second. It's this battle for third between Fody and Weeks. Stanley wins. Wadsworth second. Weeks clears Fody for third. 2/100ths of a second. A great battle for third. And Lake Norman goes 1-2-4 in the Southern 500. What a great finish.
Ethan Stanley picking up the win here in the Decor Depot Southern 500.
He also
Joining
won
the
both
list
stages.
of winners. It was an okay night for the 91 car.
The Mark Martin quote throwback that has run every race this season, picking up a really big win. And yeah, a very impressive night for Ethan Stanley, assuredly. 367 laps. Looks like our race time was about 3 hours, 15 minutes for Ethan Stanley.
Not bad.
Well, I'll take that. I'll take that for sure. As Stanley gets into the burnouts, I'll be interested to talk to Matthew Weeks. He was 2/100ths of a second from not talking to us. He was involved in a few incidents tonight, and I think that will be very interesting to hear his thoughts. Let's just jump him right in to the booth and grab Matthew. So Matthew Weeks, David in the booth. You got us, and how about that night? Finished third. Pretty competitive night.
It could have been better. I wish I didn't get like 30 seconds of damage when Rucker completely killed me, so I was just playing catch up after then, and then it was just so hard to pass. It was kind of about track position, and once you get about a certain amount of laps on tires, it's just even times pretty much. So it was just hard to do.
Talking about, the incident, the damage with Andrew Rucker certainly set back on the evening. Definitely, for the most part, considering it was a relatively clean Southern 500, only 3 cautions, but there were definitely some interesting moments, and unfortunately, it seemed like you were kind of in the center of a lot of them.
Well, yeah, I'm just not going to take like Norman's crap anymore. How they race people. If you're not going to race me with respect, I'm not going to race you with respect. So, and Crump just kept on and kept on. He's done so much stuff, and then knowing with old tires that you really can't race going into one, and he wanted to race me hard. So that's on him. And then I know earlier in the race I was underneath him in 4, and he just come down, and I'm like, bro, I'm there. I'm tired of you chopping my nose. I'm tired of the like disrespect and racing me how y'all race me. So I'm just gonna start racing them how they race me, and that's how it's gonna be. I'm just fed up with it.
All right, and I guess the further question would be, from last week we didn't get to talk to you, but thinking about Pocono and this race and some of the others. I mean, you've been close a lot of times this year, but you've had some stuff taken away from you. Is that gonna go further into the next couple of weeks, or are you trying to put it behind and focus on grabbing the 11 car win?
I'm just focused on trying to get a win. I mean, we come out of the gates fast. Like I messed up at Daytona, but I mean, with me being the last car in the lap, I was literally in the lead pack, leading so-called leading laps the entire race. And then late in the race we finally had a caution, and I went from 20th to 4th in the last 15 laps or so. And then Texas, we were quick, fast, and then I got stuck with that late caution. And then when you have one of the guys in front of you and you got a teammate on your outside, it's kind of hard because you're getting that dirty air and that's affecting you, and you're getting pitched, so it's even harder. And then I just got over my head and pretty much wrecked myself there. And then I felt like I had a shot at Pocono, and I just felt like I got used up like you shouldn't be used up there. Like that was not called for. I know he's mad about Nashville, but I don't have to go to the white line or yellow line on the front stretch. I don't have to go there. So, but the dive ball me and wreck me at Pocono, that kind of pissed me off. But yeah, I'm on, dude. It's just racing. I move on, and once the race is over, I move on, and it's on to next week. But we've had the speed. We're gonna win a race eventually. It's coming.
I would agree. Any shout outs here for us before we send you off, Matthew?
Shout out 213 Simware. They've been with me years, man. Go buy you a championship T-shirts, a glass, whatever, man. They got all kinds of other drivers. Shout out JV Designs on this beautiful Jeff Burton throwback. I mean, Justin's on vacation. I think he's in the Netherlands, so shout out to him, man. He always brings some heat with these paint schemes he gives me. And all the Pro Edge guys, Tucker was running good. I think he kind of burned his tires off. Ethan was kind of in the struggle bus tonight, too. And shout out the fueled up guys that raced. And I know, Betty, if you're watching, shout out for you cheering us on at Pro Edge, man. We love it. And everyone that watched, all the sponsors, you guys sitting here for 4 hours. I don't know how long, but shout out to you guys, too.
I appreciate it, Matthew. Congratulations on P3. We'll catch you next week.
All right, man. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
That's Matthew Weeks. I didn't move him to the right channel. Grab Justin Wadsworth there and send Weeks on down. Justin, it's David in the booth. First of all, you got me. And second of all, congratulations on P2. What a really strong run for the old 6 car tonight.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a great run. I made a mistake there at the beginning, but luckily we were able to kind of pull it back through at the end there. That caution was helpful too.
Justin, as much as it pains me to see a 6 on a DuPont Chevrolet, obviously a very impressive performance tonight. That last run, being able to get a second place finish in a crown jewel event, how much does this, it's not the win, sure, but how much does this mean for you going forward this season?
It means a lot, man. Darlington's one of my favorite tracks. It was something I had circled, and I've felt like maybe luck hasn't gone my way. I've had the pace this season, but maybe not the results. And the end of the race, my fuel calculator was off, and I ran out of fuel driving down pit road, so I lost a bunch of time. I felt like we had top 5 pace regardless, just needed the track position, and yeah, man, I'm pumped.
Take us through those last 20 or so laps when you got to second and started running down Ethan Stanley. Was there anything you could have done to go grab your teammate, go catch your teammate there, or were you kind of resigned to the 1-2 and hoping he just made a mistake in front of you?
No, I was gonna give him hell, man. I saw Tucker was just riding him basically the whole first half of that run, and he was getting the dirty air, wearing out his stuff, and I knew it was making Ethan push too, so I just hung back about a second just to get the clean air, try and save a little bit of tire to make a run at him. And then it worked out because I was able to get by Tooker in one corner. We really didn't have to do any side-by-side racing, and I was getting maybe half a tenth on Stanley there a lap at the end, but I just ran out of time. And even if I had more laps, I think Weeks might have got us both then. So Lake Norman 1-2-4, we'll take it.
Before we let you go, who do you have to thank and give shout outs to on this runner-up finish tonight?
First, want to give a shout out to Lake Norman. Being on the team has been awesome. I think it's kind of helped me maybe take it to the next level. Maybe I'm still a click off of those guys, but yeah, I want to thank them. They've been awesome. Every single one of them really helpful. Great with helping me get the car situated. Everybody's very open about everything. So big thanks to them. Thanks to my dad. I know he stuck it out for the whole race with me. He's got to get up before tomorrow. So big shout out to him. And then shout out to Revelement Workshop, my sponsor. He does a great job. I mean, I know, Zach, you weren't a huge fan of the paint job, but I think it's beautiful, man. I think he did an awesome job. He's a great painter. So if anyone needs a paint job, give him a shout. He does awesome work, and he's a great guy. So
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Justin, on the runner-up finish, and hopefully we see you in victory lane in one of these things.
man, I hope so. Thanks, guys.
That's Justin Wadsworth, if I can get it the button. And now let's bring up Ethan Stanley, the race winner for the Southern 500 this evening. Ethan, congratulations on the stage sweep, the race win, and an overall very dominant night for old car number 91.
Yeah, thanks. That was a long one.
Take us through your night a little bit, and just did you ever kind of feel like it was in doubt? I felt like you even were going to win this race before that late caution.
Oh no, it was definitely in doubt. I wasn't gonna make it the rest of that run. Fody definitely had it won if it stayed green. So I got lucky on that. Just pit at the right time, and we got a caution. I was really banking on a caution, and yeah, that was just a long one. John was really good. He was probably the best car on the track. Just sucks that he sped on pit road. And then yeah, it's just fun fighting everyone. Great race.
How much does this one mean, being a crown jewel, being the Southern 500, to add this win to your resume here in Elite?
Oh, I'm really happy. I mean, this is my first win at Darlington ever, I think, regardless of league. And first crown jewel in Elite. So pretty happy with that. I had great pace the whole time. The car felt great. It's just that was really fun, but it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, and describe, I guess, the strategy going forward, right? You have won 2 races in this series now, and it seems like you're just kind of hunting playoff points at this point, right? I mean, looking forward, you look like one of the championship favorites, going down the stretch. Is there anything more you can do other than just go out and try to win races?
Not really. I mean, lead as many laps as I can. Watkins Glen's next week, so I should have a good chance there. Should be a couple of us up there. And then yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just a good turnaround from last season where I was kind of disappointed, didn't get the wins that I wanted, and just barely lost out at the end on getting the final 4. So yeah, this is really good momentum, and hopefully this can carry me a long way.
Before we let you go, any shout outs for your performance tonight?
Yeah, as always, big shout out to Blue Egg Marketing and JD Designs for these beautiful paints. This is not a special throwback, but it's still a throwback. Mark Martin in 2001, of course. And big shout out to you guys up in the booth for putting up with a race this long. And big shout out to Chad and the admins and everybody that makes the league run.
All right. Well, appreciate it, Stanley. Congratulations on the second win of the season. We'll see you next week at Watkins Glen. And I saw that I think Dave typed in your name already for the win. So hopefully he didn't jinx you there. But good luck next week at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, thank you.
Oop, I put him back. But that is. But so congratulations to Ethan Stanley, Justin Wadsworth, and Matthew Weeks. And you've seen the running order. I think we don't need to go over it. Congrats to Dustin Dewar, 11th place run, lead lap run for driver 32. Jordan Owens with another strong run. Think that car will be pointed towards the playoffs. You've got Corey Abbott, Ty McIntosh, Josh Clark all making top 20 finishes in this one. An exciting night, I think, overall for all of our elite racing drivers. A very clean night. Really appreciated that we got that done in like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, definitely a lot cleaner than we would have expected from one of these crown jewel races. But I mean, that was the trend at Daytona. Like you said, we had the long green flag run at the start of that race and had lots of green flag racing here tonight at Darlington. Ethan Stanley, huge win, not just for uh, being a crown jewel win, but for establishing himself. He's got to be one of the guys fighting for that championship this season. He already had the win to his credit at Texas. Now he's the first to 2 wins this season here in the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. And oh, by the way, we're going to Watkins Glen next week. So he might just make it 3 for 5 in 1 week's time. And, speaking of which, of course, just a simple broadcasting note, it is Labor Day weekend this weekend where the real Southern 500 will be taking place at the Darlington Raceway. As such, no Stay Tuned Sports Truck Series event this Sunday night. No Revelist Photography Grand National Series event on Monday night. The next time we will be live here on the Elite Racing Network, I believe, will be that Watkins Glen Cup race in 1 week's time.
Yep. Tune in with us next week, and we'll be back and probably watching Ethan Stanley putting more whoopings on these guys. For David Huckleberry, Zach Evans, and David Westergreen, this has been the Decor Depot Southern 500 for the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. We'll see you guys next week.